The Ames City Council for February 5th to order. Continuing on our budget hearing, second night of 3 nights in a row. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Shanker and Mr. Abraham.
Yep, we'll start out with, we're going to be talking about community enrichment programs. And Keith will start us off.
All right, so don't have any numbers up here, which is probably good. So a lot of pictures, just like we did with the CIP. But I'll try to help you follow along with the pages. So we start off with page 142 for Parks and Recreation. First thing, though, is if you get to page 144, 145, one of the things, last year with our temporary staffing issue, so we did develop a 3-year plan, and council did approve some additional funding to help us start increasing wages to be more competitive and so on. One of the things that we have experienced this year is this fall we had 3 of our full-time recreation staff, 2 recreation managers, an ice arena manager, all resigned within 3 weeks of each other. One went to Stanford for a position, one went to Iowa State, and then one took a similar position in Waukee. But we sat down with staff and really tried to find out what are some of the issues, and with what we offer, 24/7, really not being, well, if you talk the figure in the ice arena, we're open for quite a few hours, but it's starting to wear on some of our staff with, coming in and working from 8 to 5, having to be available in the evenings, the weekends, a lot of temporary staff making phone calls, responding to phone calls and so on. So what you'll see throughout the budget is there is some additional full-time staff, a recreation manager or a recreation coordinator who will actually work from about 2 or noon to 8, 2 to 10, somewhere in that range, maybe different on the weekends, but have like a Tuesday through a Saturday type of work schedule. We're adding a 3/4 time our ice arena coordinator at the ice arena to again work Tuesday through Saturday, and kind of that 4 to 10, a 3/4 time person. And then we're adding some temporary staff in there as well. Kind of part of a 3-year plan. Next year, we're hoping to come back with adding a maintenance position on the park side. And then in year 3, actually adding another recreation coordinator. So you'll see that in each of the different areas. And with one recreation manager, we reallocated his time. He was spending 35% of his time at the ice arena. And with this ice arena coordinator, taking all of his time out of the ice arena, reallocating some of it to the general fund, some of our athletic and instructional programs, and aquatics, and then also putting more time towards Homewood. So that's where some of the changes will be. The fees and charges, Parks and Recreation Commission, we did share the fees and charges, went through the budget with them. About 35% of activities programs will have an increase. And then you can just see some of the different components. Ice arena rental rates, 5% increase. Aquatic Center, no increases at this time. And then Homewood, greens fees, $50 to $1 depending on time of day. And then season passes, the increase varies as well. And we have a couple slides later on with some of that. Parks and Recreation Commission already did adopt, the fees and charges, and those are all incorporated into, the budget. As far as department-wide projects or citywide survey, ADA inventory, Miracle Park, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then obviously with Indoor Aquatic Center moving, forward after the Healthy Life Center referendum defeat. So those are some of the major projects that we'll continue to work on as the year goes on. One thing just wanted to.
Excuse me, Keith. Are you going to
Oh, yep.
Are you going to touch on those later on in your presentation, or that's it?
Miracle Park, yes. The other ones, no.
Can you just explain the citywide survey? It says that this fiscal year, which ends at June 30th, we got 10 grand to conduct the survey. So is that in process right now? And what are we trying to determine on that?
Yeah, what we wanted to do with this is do a deeper dive into just parks and recreation and really find out what are we doing that people are liking and maybe what are we not doing. We've tried to get a lot of feedback from participants, and some people will come to us and say, hey, have you ever thought about this? So that's what we really want to do with that survey. Kelly's been working on it with it. We haven't been spending as much time on it because of the vacancies that we had. Kelly's had to cover some of the positions. I'm covering some of the positions. So, and now that we do have a couple of staff on, it's taking a lot of Kelly's time just from a training standpoint and making sure they're all up to speed. So, we're hoping to still get that done.
So how are you doing? How are you going out to get that feedback?
Well, we have had contact with Iowa State, the same individual that Susan works on with the resident satisfaction survey. So we've been working with them. So we want to do it scientifically to get this accomplished and get good feedback and good data. So it really will help us.
So it's going to be basically we're mailing out like X number of surveys to people.
Correct. Yep. And with students, we'll look for getting feedback from the students. So we use a similar process to the resident satisfaction survey.
And then the aquatic center, where do you stand in terms of what Parks and Rec Commission, what are their thoughts are, or it's just something that's going to be focused on this year or coming year? Or I know council hasn't talked about it yet either, so I was just curious what you had talked about or thought about so far.
Yep. So in December, we had Steve came to a meeting with the Parks and Recreation Commission, just talking about the CIP, and we did have some conversation at that time, and just tried to get some feedback from the commission. They are all in favor of moving forward with coming back with some type of an aquatic center. If it may encompass a couple of smaller amenities, maybe a gym, walking area, an indoor playground. If it was something along those lines were added in, they were in favor of that, but they obviously understand that we need to go and get more feedback, and they're up for having some of those conversations with the public and hosting some input sessions. So that's about the extent of what we had talked about.
And no, we really need to understand what the community, get good feedback and focus groups, and just get the unvarnished assessment of what they're going to be supportive of, and
Right.
see if that merges with what the vision is for Parks and Rec as well as the council going forward as well. So,
Yeah.
so I just, I think everyone knows, and that's one of the council's goals that we have adopted was moving that project forward
Right.
to a bond issue, hopefully sometime, next year.
Yeah.
But there's a process that we all know we need to go through to make sure we understand what our community really wants and what they're going to support, and getting those costs out there, both, operational costs or ballpark figures essentially.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and there's money in the adjusted budget if you approve the budget to go out and do a study.
Yeah.
With that, and get some of that information again, like we had for the Healthy Life Center on a smaller scale.
Thank you.
Yep. So just wanted to show, a good year. We obviously appreciate the property tax dollars and everything else, but again, there's a number of individuals and groups out there that do well. And this is just an overview. We've had Tahira and Labhira give a $50,000 donation. We had an individual who's a golfer out at Homewood, came in one day, talked to Kelly, and came in one day and said, just want to give a small donation, and she wrote out a check for $10,000. Sunset Ridge, that neighborhood association, raised $18,000, and then just with park benches, memorial benches, and trees, we get about $8,000 a year. So just wanted to recognize that we do have some very generous individuals, and that's very helpful. So Miracle Park did have a meeting with Lynn Carey a couple weeks ago, and she did indicate that that they have raised enough money to cover everything that that they wanted to do, but they are still continuing to fundraise because there may be some other things that could include, and then if they still have money left over, they'll put it towards a for the maintenance, general maintenance of it. So these are just some pictures again of where it is, before the snow started flying. One of the things that we're excited about, and kind of we're on page 146 with instructional programs, but one of the things that we're really looking forward to is getting started with an actual Miracle League. So we'll run it for youth, and we'll also have an adult league. And if everything goes well, we're hoping that we could have our first league this fall, is what we're planning on. So, and just, when you see those pictures, I don't know how you cannot get a smile on your face, and we're really excited to get that moving forward. So aquatics, just a couple of things, and Jill Burt and all of our staff does a wonderful job. And I didn't introduce, but behind me, if you look from left to right, you have Joshua Thompson, our park superintendent, and then Kelly Omelette, our recreation superintendent, and then Craig Kaufman, who's our auditorium, bandshell, and community center manager. So they're here, and obviously we have a lot of other staff. But with aquatics, we're looking at it. One of the things that Jill did this last year was an idea that came up. We sell season passes, but when we get to the end of the season, it's somebody, we never had a discount. So this year, what we did is we offered a season pass just for August and September. And how many did we sell, Kelly? 24. So we sold 24 of these end of season passes. So there was a good experiment, worked well. We're going to continue with that. And there was some of the feedback where people said, we wouldn't have bought a pass. We maybe not have come to Furman, but with this option, this is great. And we had some people that even came, and then our staff knew who they were, called them after we put this into effect, and they said, "Oh, that's great. Thanks for calling." And they went ahead and did this. We also did some $5 frenzies, which you get in $5, and then we had some $5 meal deals and things of that sort. Unfortunately, weather didn't quite cooperate with some of those, but it was something that we did, and we'll continue as well. And then the Wibbit, we have those on Saturday nights at Furman in the summertime. But we do move it up, and we do it once a week or once a month up at the municipal pool. So another thing, gold level swim lesson provider, something that Red Cross has started in 2017. We have been at a gold level for the first 2 years of this program. And you can see over 1,750 swim lessons provided in fiscal year 18-19. So providing a lot of swim lessons, and obviously showing kids how to be safe around water. So community center,
Keith, Keith, question on page 151, aquatics.
Yep.
We got number of swim lesson registrations projected for this coming year is almost 2,000, and number of private swim lessons is 600. Is that a combination at municipal pool and Furman, or is that all Furman, or what?
No, it's both. It's and actually it's not just municipal pool and Furman. We also do swim lessons at Green Hills. We do parent-child swim lessons in some of our younger ages. We can do at Green Hills as well. So three locations.
So what are the thoughts, knowing that we're probably not going to have municipal pool will be gone probably in 2022? You're probably already thinking about that. What thoughts do you have on how do we meet that need in the community when that goes away?
Yeah, we have had some conversation, with it. We haven't come up with anything definite. We talked, could go to talk to hotels. ISU has some space. There still may be an opportunity to do some levels at the high school pool. So we've been talking about these. We don't have anything firm yet.
Hey, Keith,
Yes.
do we still have, I guess I don't even know what to call them, scholarships for Furman and for swimming lessons? For how extensive are they?
Yep. So what we do is we do provide scholarships, and the scholarship program that we have right now is we absorb 50% of the cost of the program, and then the participant pays 50%. Now, through the Healthy Life Center, we were talking about really expanding the scholarship program. Again, with that not happening, what we're doing, we just had a conversation recently about now what do we do moving forward in regards to getting more people. But one of the things, and Kelly's been working with Ben McConville to get information in regards to pairing the data that he has along with the data that we have from our registrations and seeing where people are participating and where people aren't. And then we can go into those neighborhoods and find a way to get in or into those areas of town, geographically, and really trying to hit hard and say, hey, what do we need to do differently to get you involved? And some of it may be just the lack of awareness, or there may be some funding issues and so on. Parks and Recreation Commission has staff to look at our scholarship program and come back with ideas for changes. So we'll be doing that as well. Okay. So most of our youth programs, and that's what it is right now, youth programs. And then we also do provide discounts or scholarships for individual and family passes for the summer season. So the community center, and again, just with the failure of the bond referendum vote, just really need to put more, I guess, some TLC into the community center. So last year when we experimented, we had been doing the gym floor every year. Last year we decided not to do it. And actually the gym floor is holding up really well. So we'll be doing that every other year. So 1 year you'll see it in there, 1 year you won't, and so on. And then just some painting and things. And if you can see in this picture here with the mats along that west wall, that whole wall was kind of a drab, kind of almost like a pea green. It was really not a very good color. So we changed it to this kind of light gray, and it just really spices up stuff, makes it a lot brighter in there. So those are things that we'll be doing with the community center. But the auditorium usage, last in fiscal year 18-19, 221 days, 124 events. And then just a minor Hope Lutheran Church, 2 services each Sunday. They also use the gymnasium and other spaces. So there's a lot of usage that they have. And then with auditorium fees, we do have 3% increase in rental rates. And then in 2021, the extended use option is eliminated. And you've received the staff report earlier in the week in regards to that. Kind of give you some options to consider. So that's with the auditorium. Bandshell. Just with that right now, we're doing upgrades. We've awarded a contract, or council awarded a contract to Jaspering Electric to redo the lighting, put LED lighting in the band shell itself, and then some other bringing things up to code and so on. One of the ideas that Craig has with the band shell, once that is done, he really tried to kind of do a showcase concert out there. So he's working on that project. To really, and it'll be a major difference when you see how those lights look compared to what we have, right now.
One of the questions that was posed during the council meeting was, I know you had some alternates you couldn't take for some outside, boxes.
Yeah.
And could you just comment on, you don't just throw alternates in willy-nilly. There was a reason for that. What would be the benefit for implementing some of those? Was it more like food trucks or other types of opportunities to attract more events here? Because this is really a true anchor in our downtown area. And it's a great venue. Can you just comment on that just briefly? I think that city manager might be looking into.
Yeah, some of it is there's a couple of some of the alternates. One was for some older panels, that were in there. Not critical that they get replaced right now, but it is old wiring, and we wanted to just upgrade that and try to combine some of those. There was some LED lighting in some of the areas, that for right now we're still okay. But if we could, we'd like to do that. And then one of the alternates was the two poles out front. Yeah, so there would be two poles that would be put out front, would have some lighting to add some additional lighting to the stage. And then also those lighting would help people get away more safely at the end of the season. Now, I think Kelly has had and Craig have had conversation with Jaspering in regards to if things go well and we don't need the contingency, we may be able to add a couple of those alternates in with a change order. So that's what we're doing. We also have there's 2 dressing rooms or changing rooms, up there. We've got that in the CIP coming up. And depending on what that is, we're looking at maybe being able to get some of those things done as well. The other thing is we have a painting project. As soon as all the lighting, electrical work is done, we'll be painting. And right now, the estimate, we had $30,000 in there. The estimate that they have received was more like about 10 right now. So we may have some additional funds that we could put towards that as well. So we're still going to try to get those done if we can.
So what's the condition of the wiring? Because I think my concern is if we have a fire there, that's going to be very expensive to rebuild with all the copper and, all that condition. Is the wiring in really good condition, or is there concerns that the electrical engineer noticed that precipitated putting in new panels and some of the rewiring? Because certainly that's, an ounce of prevention would be worth many pounds of cure, I would think.
Right. I don't know, Kelly or Craig, can you speak to that?
Even some of the panels are 1930s panels that are still in there. And I can't really speak to the condition of the wiring because it's in the walls.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did, before we did this project, we did ask Modus to take a look, and they gave us recommendations. So some of it was bringing it up to code. And so really what they felt needed to be done, that was put into the base bid, and then said, if you can do some of these other items, you can do it. But again, it's not critical. So if we move on to wellness, which is in page 154, just a couple of programs: boxing boot camp on the left, BogaFit on the right, and both of those programs have been received very well. And I asked the commission on this. There's only one group that doesn't like the boxing program. Can you guess who it is? It's the people with the offices underneath. Right, Dwayne?
That's pretty loud.
So when they're up there, it does get a little noisy. But again, Nancy Shaw, who's our wellness coordinator, does a great job of always keep trying to add new things. With Homewood Clubhouse, which is page 156. Just one of the things I wanted to mention is in regards to when we're working on this and the design and everything, kind of the total city perspective. So the committee makeup, we had Corey Mellis from Fleet. We had some involvement from our Parks and Recreation Department. We had some other individuals, that John Forth was on here from Public Works. So we had a number of different, people involved and really helped with the design. And then also fire department is going to burn the existing building, which will save us some money on demo as well. But it also provides them with a training ground so they can stay fresh on their techniques. So again, projected opening date is April 2021. And with this right now, until we get the bids, we did not put any revenue and expenses, additional revenue expenses in this budget for 2021. But if the bids are successful, what we'll do is we'll do that amendment time in the fall with that.
Keith, how are we doing that transition between the old clubhouse and the new clubhouse?
Okay. So what we'll be doing is we'll be getting like a temporary trailer, kind of like job site trailers. We'll be doing that, and it'll be limited concessions. We'll be able to do some, but really just coming in and doing the, paying their greens fees and so on. What we're really trying to do is get through all of our summer leagues before we do the burn, which would probably happen in late August. And then the contractors could start right away, September 1. So we really want to try to minimize that. And we want to have this operational before we open in April of 2021. So we might have a few months of that. Okay. Just at the ice arena, it's page 158. One of the things, sled hockey, and we've been trying to do more, with individuals with disabilities. This is actually the Adaptive Sports Iowa rents ice, and they've been renting more ice to do this program, which again is a great thing for people. Okay.
Can you
So-
comment on your, you have a 25-year capital replacement plan?
Yep.
Can you help us explain what that is?
Yep. So one of the things with the ice arena is right now City Council and the university both put in $20,000 each year, which goes into the capital replacement fund. And we're at a point now where we're coming up on our 20th anniversary for the ice arena. And what we're looking at doing is we're not sure if that $20,000, it's been $20,000 day one from each of those entities. So $40,000 per year. And we've been able to do that. But as we move into the next 15 years, we know there's going to be some more extensive repair work or overhauls with the compressors, some other things that may be happening. So Joshua Kelly and the ice arena manager, what they're doing, they're just waiting to get some information. But we want to forecast, what do we have to do each year? And then will that $40,000 per year be enough? I already had conversation with Mike Giles with Rec Services at Iowa State, and he's okay with raising the fees as long as we can show him that it's needed, or that.
So this is more maintenance, not replacing the entire facility.
Correct. Yep. So these next slides, when you look at our budget as a whole, on the recreation side, we're able to bring in fees and charges and so on. We bring a little bit on the park side. But these next few slides, just wanted to kind of take a look. It is highly subsidized, but when you see some of these pictures and the activities that people are doing, it's obviously well worth the money spent for the community. And you can see the different things that happen, whether it's just a picnic lunch or watching the sunset, playing on the playground. And so on, parents and child and just a lot of different things. So just wanted to kind of share some of those pictures and the different activities that people do in the park system. So again, we've had this initiative for 2025, to be trim free. Right now, at the end of this fiscal year, we'll have about 13 of our 38 parks will be mostly trim free. When I say mostly trim free, we design any new parks and we're trying to get some of our parks to be trim free. But occasionally something happens, something gets put in, that we still have to go out there and trim. But this is just an example. Tea Garden Park, we put in new playground equipment, and you can see on the left with the concrete border around there, it's all flush with the ground. So once the grass comes up, we can put the edge of the mower. We put the trash can and the grill in the picture on the right. A little artwork on a pad. Again, we can just put the edge of the mower over. So again, we can go into this park with a mower, and we don't have to send anybody back there with a weed whacker. Okay. Forestry, again, just with Paul Tauke, who's our forester, developed this last year. Begin these here's what's getting trimmed on the park side. With each of the 2 fiscal years. And again, does a great job really trying to do this. So get in there, trim them up enough, prune them enough. So we only have to get in there about every 5 years. Again, they'll be good. And we work with police also in regards to SEPTED and really trying to keep the parks open and safe and so on. So homeless camps, this past year, we've had a number of homeless camps where we've had to go in and clean up. This one here, which is on city property behind House Welding, was over just under 5 tons of trash, that we had to go in there and clean up. And
5
look
tons?
surprised. 5 tons.
Was there vehicles?
What was that?
Vehicles?
No, it's just
Just like that.
that kind of stuff. And this is a cooperative effort with
A lot of
Public Works Streets. They bring people out. Parks and Rec brings people out. Resource Recovery brings roll-offs, so we can put that in there. Police come out to talk to individuals if they're there. This particular one, there were some animals, so animal control came out. But one of the things in the adjusted budget this year is we're actually we have money in for some cameras and the wireless cameras, so they can send a picture to a device. So what we want to do is get those into places that are maybe a little harder to get to, put them under bridges, put them in some locations so we can monitor those remotely, and we can try to see when activity starts. We can get staff from whatever department down there talking to individuals, get them help, and avoid these types of major cleanups. Is that what we are trying to do?
So this is a broader topic that I think we should have as a council. I'm not really concerned about the trash. We need to be concerned about the people that are in that situation, and the idea of having a policy where we're having cameras out to send to move people on just because there are people there. That's a conversation that we need to have around this dais. And if before we would take such a policy, we need to have a conversation about what options do those people have. So I don't know if we need to bookmark this in some way to circle back, but I guess I would be cautious about, I'm hesitant about going forward with a policy, sort of a zero tolerance policy, till we really think through this.
It's not a zero tolerance. This is follow-up we had a report that we gave you after the tragic death of Iowa State student.
Right.
And those were you gave us direction
Agreed.
not to allow that to happen. We don't go in there and just throw somebody off. The police work with them, try to advise them of other resources are there. But you gave us very clear direction that you didn't want us to allow people to be staying on city property.
Were cameras part of that direction, though?
Pardon me?
Were
No,
cam-
cameras were not. You can have a decision on
that's-
cameras separately, but you were pointing out you didn't want us to take action,
Well-
let people stay there. So I'm getting a little mixed message on that.
Yeah,
And we don't go in there and just kick people right out. We try
Yeah.
to find other alternatives for them, but I thought it was clear direction that you didn't want that to happen.
I don't want to take up time on this. It's just the idea of having cameras and, okay, there's someone there, we send someone out. That wasn't something that I had remembered. I mean, clearly this is not ideal, but the manner in which we move people on who are homeless, that speaks about the values and priorities of our community. I mean, this is something cities are dealing with all over the United States. So this isn't something that's unique, but I want us to have a thoughtful conversation. We haven't had an update on, when Brian gave us some numbers on the homeless shelter, but maybe at some point we need to bookmark this and come back.
All right.
All right. Hey, one of the things ISU Greek volunteers. So this past year, well, actually probably almost a year ago now, we had a couple individuals came and met with Joshua and I, and they said, we want to do something homecoming week. We got a bunch of volunteers. We want to do something. And we asked them, how many volunteers are you thinking? They said, oh, maybe 1,000. And he said, you know what, we could probably do that. is what we told them.
Wow.
And then when they left, then Joshua and I looked at it, was like, what are we going to do with 1,000 volunteers? But this is something that Joshua coordinated with Pat Wienia and Paul Tauke, some of our staff. And we did this on a Sunday afternoon in October. They had 1,350 volunteers come out. We had 5 different locations. We had staff. We also worked with the Friends of Brookside Park. They brought some of their board members out, helped with it. But what we did is we had staff go in and do some cutting beforehand, and then the volunteers, really what they did is just help drag everything out to a location, and you can see the parking lot in the top middle picture, and then we could come back and chip it up the following week. So down on the lower right is just kind of an idea of what what the value of that is, and that's just for this one day event. We also have a lot of volunteer coaches and other volunteers in the park system and at some of our facilities and so on. So just to give you an idea, Joshua just heard from the group earlier this week, and they are wanting to do something again
Good.
this next year. So we're just going to do it. And we actually have already had conversation with the Friends of Ada Hayden that, wow, what could we do if we get 1,000 volunteers out at Ada Hayden, for a couple of hours and really help with the invasives. So great thing. Vegetation management, just a variety. We do mowing. We do the prairie burns. This year we burned this fall 31 acres, 6 of it, I believe, at East River Valley, and then 25 out at Ada Hayden. That picture on the upper right is the forestry mower that council approved last year. That's what this does. We can go into these areas, and this is kind of in the southwest corner of the South Lake out at Ada Hayden. Before, you could be standing in this location and you wouldn't even be able to see the water. So this is the kind of thing that it does. And we have already, if you notice, there were 2 letters to the editor regarding how they really like the work that our staff is doing and how it opens it up and they're feeling safer. So again, that kind of goes back to the comment that Steve had just made. So just want to show real quick this little prairie burn. This is Steve Jordison from Iowa Parks and Recreation Association brought his drone out and took some footage of this, and you can see how it spreads through that grass if you get the right time. Now we have several people on staff who are prairie burn certified, to do this. And in some cases, you can see on there, it gets to a point on the right. There's a trail, right there that's mowed short, and it just kind of gets to that point and it stops. Out at Ada Hayden, sometimes with the prairie, we need to go ahead and cut in mow some fire lanes in so it doesn't jump, across and burn the whole prairie. So that's just a kind of neat thing. And our staff, again, Paul Tauke leads that, our forester, and does a great job with it. Okay.
This is
Adopt a Flower Garden. With this one, just want to mention this past year we celebrated, or Hollows celebrated 25 years of donating flowers to it. And I don't know how many, what's the dollar amount, Joshua? You remember? Per year? Yes. Yeah. So a lot of money over 25 years that they've put forward to it. And again, there's a lot of different groups that do this. Okay. Any question about that? Kind of wraps up Parks and Recreation.
I just have a prairie burn question. What if is there someone who would help with that in town if people, more and more people are going to have like native lawns and things like that? And I assume they would still that if you had a small patch of prairie, say at your house or something like that, it would still benefit from burning. Is that something that the fire department will come oversee if you request it, or it's just probably a new thing, or I don't know if there's much of a need for that, but
Yeah, well, you need to, with it, there is you have to, I think if you're going to burn, you have to get a fire permit from the fire department. Some of the locations, with houses and things like that may just not be conducive. So really from prairie management, you can either burn, which we do. And there are some areas within the park system that we can't burn just because of its location. There's one right along 69 at Ada Hayden, right along the highway. Joshua tried to burn a couple years ago. Wind conditions were perfect, and then it switched and blew the smoke right over 69, and and we had to stop. So the alternative is mowing.
Okay.
And that's something that we do at times too, is if we can't burn, if it's too wet, whatever, we can mow it. And that isn't as good as the burn, but it still accomplishes the same things.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Right?
Keith-
Go ahead.
Well, at one of our meetings, the question came up about the Winokur bequest.
Yep.
Now, that's still earmarked for a pool facility, I
Yep.
assume. Is it possible to use that money for another large Parks and Rec project? And I'm just going to say the clubhouse. And I'm not actually planning that, but let's just say we were looking at that. Is that something that could be done with that money, or is it?
Yeah,
Earmarked.
the money was not earmarked for anything in particular because initially, when the money came in, for those of any of you who were on council at the time, the Parks and Recreation was looking at purchasing some land out on Ontario, and use the Winokur money to develop the park. When that didn't flourish and decided not to purchase that land, then because of the need for an indoor aquatic center, then the Parks and Recreation Commission and City Council said, yes, let's put that money towards an indoor aquatic center. So it is not earmarked for in any particular purpose. It's just we felt it would be, at the time, best used for the indoor aquatic center or an aquatic center.
Thanks.
Keith, just two quick questions on page 160. The dog park operations budget declines, percentage change is down 32%. Just remind us real quickly on what we're doing there.
That goes to animal control.
Is that we're automating something?
That goes to animal control.
Animal
Nope.
But do you,
Yeah, what we have done is we've been working with Ron Edwards and Doug Houghton from Police and Animal Control, and through a conversation, we do a really good job of taking care of the park and mowing and everything. But animal control, some of the issues that we've been dealing with out at the dog park with non-compliance with tags and illegal use of the park and so on. Our staff, when we had staff out there, they just don't have that clout. People weren't listening to them. As soon as animal control would come, they got a different level of compliance. So part of it, and I think Steve can speak more to it, is we're taking some of the money that we had for staff and it will be transferred to police, and then they will be looking at getting a 3/4 or taking one of their halftime techs to a 3/4 officer to help with that piece. So that's why that there's just a transfer of money from one general fund account to another one.
okay, all right. Thanks. I'm fine. Thank you.
All right. Any other with Parks and Recreation? If not, we'll move to cemetery. And just one of the things, Joe Newman, our principal clerk's been working with the Ames Historical Society. We do now have our first sign up. It's just a historical thing. And then that area in the picture to the left, our staff put that area together. They did the concrete, they did the staining, the benches and everything. So it's just a nice little area now with that little history sign. So over the next however many number of years, I think we were looking at maybe 3 or 4 more historical signs in regards to the cemetery going up. The other thing with fee increases with the cemetery, that is in all of your information as well. And one of the things that we did do some benchmarking, and we benchmarked us included 11 different communities, so 10 other communities besides us. And out of those 11 communities, there were 7 that had higher rates, 3 that had lower. And then we also got feedback from the funeral homes and said, Ames Municipal Cemetery is a really nice cemetery. You guys are really not charging, what it's worth. So what you can see in the fee increases, there's actually a 7% increase for this coming year for lot sales and interments. One of the changes with the fees also is that we're actually recommending that for infant burials for Ames residents, that those fees would be waived, which we have about 1 or 2 infant burials. So that's what we're proposing as this as well. One of the other major changes is taking, instead of kind of an a la carte type of thing for the niches in the columbarium, get all these things anyways. So we're just saying, hey, let's just do one lump sum fee, for that. So, okay. And then the other thing, we had Army Corporal Ralph Bennett this past year. The remains were found, and this is just a picture of the burial, and which it went very well. A lot of comments of how the cemetery looked, and one of the things, the location where he's buried now, that was not looking all that great because there were some trees right there, a lot of shade, grass wasn't growing. As soon as we found out this was going to happen, Pat Wienia, who does an awesome job with our turf, he went in there, did some things, actually experimented with a new seed, and it grew really well in that environment. So that's something that we'll now be able to use and have success in other areas of the cemetery and maybe even the park system. So any questions about the cemetery?
How long do we have capacity at the cemetery?
Right now, one of the things that's happening is we're now getting more, getting to the point where we're having more cremations than actually traditional burials.
Sure.
With the traditional burials, now some of the cremations are put into the ground, but right now our estimate is we probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 70 years
Oh, wow.
of spaces. So we are adding, a columbarium, and we have room to add 4 more, and we could even add more. So that I think is going to be another way that may extend how many in-ground burial spaces we have.
Thanks.
Would that include both cemeteries then, both the Ontario as well as Ames Municipal?
Yes. Yep. And that's one of the things with the fees also. We're not looking at increasing the fees at the Ontario Cemetery, just because we don't get a lot of burials out there. More people want to come to this, so maybe an enticement. But we don't want to have too much of a gap that everybody, we fill that cemetery up and things as well. So, yep. Okay, if we go to right of way, which is page 118. Just a few things. That picture on the right is a hazardous tree. And if you remember, council a couple years ago had given us $75,000 to get manage the hazardous tree. And as of today, we have 0 hazardous trees, that are up. At the time when we asked you for the money, there were 75 or so, up. So we've got them all taken down. But Paul, he drives through the community, and occasionally he sees a new one, takes a look at it and says, okay, this is hazardous. But we're addressing those right away with it. Pruning new and old trees. And then again, with the Ames Foundation with their planting, again, it's got all the right of ways split up into zones as well. And try to hit so many zones per year, and trim those out. As far as an EAB response, plan again with this, and we'll be coming to you at the end of February with a report on that. Paul is working on it right now because we're in year 6, and we said we'd come back after year 5, give you an update. But you can see right now, just from a park standpoint, we only have 8 trees left. Over a 20-year plan, we were really aggressive. We were able to take a lot of those trees down. Cemetery, we have 29, left between the 2 cemeteries, 3 cemeteries, and then right of way, you can see 566. So we've done really well, but we'll give you more information in that report coming up at the end of the month. And Ames Foundation planting, they've been doing this since 2015. With that EAB in the right of way, we are replanting 1-to-1. But since 2015 with the Ames Foundation, planted about 723 trees something like that in the right of way, in addition to what we're replacing with the EAB plan.
What kind of percentage of loss are we getting because people aren't taking care of the new trees?
And do you know that, Joshua?
If the trees are dying, we're replacing them. There are some individuals that will flat out just don't want a tree, and so we're obviously not fighting that battle. But if we see a tree that's dead within the first year or two, we're replacing it. Or it's getting replaced, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and some of it with with the contractor that we get the trees from. I think they have a year warranty, right? Yep. So if a tree dies, then they replace it. And one of the things too that we've been doing is we now go out to the homeowner. We say you're slated to have a tree planted, and like Joshua said, if somebody says no, we don't want it, then we don't force the issue. In other cases, say, yeah, we want a tree, but can we pick a specific species? And then Paul will work with them to get it. And we have found that just by giving them a little bit of an opportunity to pick the species they want, there's a lot more care for those trees also. So, all right.
So Keith, on your right-of-way maintenance, turf maintenance, do we mow all the boulevards then? Is that right? And up by the cemetery and so what's the plan for like weed eating along the fences and also just trying to get, I know towards the end of the summer, we have lots of grasses growing over the curbs and stuff like that. What's the policy in terms of how often you do that or?
Yeah. Well, it depends on where it is and what it is. So some of the medians we do take care of, and we get out there and mow or trim if that's what it takes. Some of the medians are neighborhood associations. They're supposed to take care of those. And there was one, out on Wilder, that was very grown over with weeds and things. And when that was put in, the homeowner association said they would take care of it, but now there's nobody else left around. So some of those. Sometimes with it, though, it's not even, some of those areas aren't even our responsibility or city's responsibility. We expect the property owners to take care of those. So sometimes it's if we see that, it's a matter of having a conversation. Pat has had conversation, Joshua's had conversation with some of those property owners. So it's a combination of things that we try to do to keep things looking good.
Yeah, I was thinking primarily about along Airport Road. We have that. It's kind of it's a like a farm fence essentially by the runways, and a lot of stuff grows up there. And then also we got the grass will grow over the boulevards at times, or the weeds will. And same on a university. I was just curious what the policy was and how often you go and take care of that, or could we treat that with some kind of a a system to try and, I know you're trying to get away from trimming. I just think it makes a big difference in terms of how it looks essentially.
Yeah, Joshua, can you speak to that? Because I know there's different property owners in ISU or Research Park is involved in some of that. Can you speak to
Yeah, in regards to specifically mowing on boulevards and trimming, we trim the same day or a day or two.
Okay.
Either same day or a day before we actually go out there and do the mowing. In regards to the area you're talking about on Airport Road, it's just a conversation I need to have with our turf maintenance supervisor, Pat, and just kind of and maybe it's meeting with the property owner to see what the expectations are, because that is obviously a shared property line. But, we go out and trim as much as we can in areas that it's on city property.
Yeah.
So
I'm not trying to add bricks to your back, but just we got the airport looks so good, with the new terminal and there's so many things are going on out there, and it's just something about having stuff that just grows over the curb under the street or just along that fence line, if it could just be treated. And I know there's probably a aversion to Roundup or something like that, even along some of the fence rows, but something to try and take care of that from growing would sure make a difference in terms of appearance. And then we have a lot of people that come down that road all the time too.
Yeah, and specifically along Grand, especially north of 24th Street, the median is concrete, and there's weeds that grow that. So we do go out there and spray periodically throughout the season. We do spray a lot of our other meetings for pre-emergent and for broadleaf herbicides. It's just one of those areas, specifically last year along Airport Road, they did add a new sidewalk. So, part of that was getting grown in. And so we'll take a better look at it this year and get that squared away.
Okay, thanks. Anything else for Keith or staff?
All right.
Well,
Thank you.
It's
Have a
an
good
integral
night.
part to our community, and thanks for all you do, because the parks are a great asset, and I know people really appreciate it big time. So
You're
you.
welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Donald Com, Director of Electric Services. Sitting with me is the Assistant Director, Brian Trower. Others that have shown up tonight, for those who don't know, we have an advisory committee called URAB. One of our URAB members is here. Ken Crumple is in the back. And then several of the key staff are also here. I got to turn around to make sure I get them right in the right order. So on my right, most of your left, Curtis Spence, he's the plant manager, power plant manager. Next to him is Ken Tarks, who is our tech services superintendent. Next to him is Lyndon Cook, who's our manager of electrical engineering. And next to him is Kurt Serke, who is the assistant manager out at the distribution department. Did I miss anybody? All right, great. So now I'm going to be talking about electric services. Before I get on to electric services, let me talk a little bit about one other area that electric is involved in, and that's what we call other community protection. This is an area where we look at street lights and we look at storm sirens, and I'll touch on that right now. So basically, it's street lights and storm sirens. One of the nice things about this is our budget's actually gone down a little bit, predominantly because street lights are becoming cheaper to operate. LED lights, we've been putting in, we're at about 55% right now, and we should have it completed in about the next 3 years. This is one of the areas that comes out of our general fund and is not part of our electric rates. So as I move into electric services, this was gone over with URAB, with our advisory board, and I will say that they did vote unanimously that we carry the budget, as you'll see tonight, forward to council for consideration. We'll be starting on page 58. I'm going to try to stay caught up. First thing that we're looking at is we're broken down into several different divisions. I'm going to start by looking at administration. The administration budget's actually up quite a bit from 19 and 20. There's two things that are driving that. Within the electric administration building right now, we do have an old HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. This past summer, we found mold in the system, and we're going to have to spend some money putting in a new duct system to get rid of the mold. The other thing that has gone up substantially is our dues to NERC, which is a requirement as being an electric utility. Beyond that, Electric Admin also runs our community solar project, SunSmart Ames. We're currently at slightly over 75%. We will be starting construction on that. Council approved that last fall, and we will have a community solar farm up and running this year. One of the things that we try to manage is we're one of those groups that we like our people to use our product. We want them to use energy, but we want it to use it wisely. So we do things like called demand side management, where we try to control the use of energy. So through our demand side management programs, and that's the next slide, but energy usage is only up about 0.5%. The other thing that we also do out of Electric Admin is Electric, together with several other departments, holds an annual eco fair. This coming year will be our 10th eco fair. We've also started something called eco chats that have been going on. And if you get a chance to go out and listen to them, we've got some great speakers. I believe they're probably on Tuesday nights, though, so it's kind of hard to get to all of them. One other big group that we have is our Smart Energy, our demand side management program. This budget's actually gone down a little bit. One of the things that we're finding value in is our demand side management programs have been reducing our peaks and have been saving the energy. Since we started the programs that council authorized in 2007, We believe that we've reduced what our peak would have been by about 23 megawatts, and we've saved over 35 gigawatt hours of energy. So that's 36 gigawatts. So that's a megawatt times 1,000. So it's a lot of watts out there. We're currently going through and we've been looking at our rebate levels on what we're paying for things like efficient air conditioners, lighting rebates, and things like that. And we'll be coming to council later this year before the beginning of next fiscal year with recommendations on new things that we would like to rebate and some of the changes to our existing programs. Our customers have been installing solar panels on their systems. Currently, we have 142 different customers that have solar panels. They range in size from 2 kilowatts to about 312 kilowatts. The total of that's slightly over 1,000 kilowatts on the system. We had, I believe, 7 customers that came to us last year to install solar panels. The year before that, there were none. So it's picking up in 2019, and I believe there's 1 or 2 in the books coming up for 2020, Lyndon? Or did we just finish that last one?
Just finished the last application.
All right. So we'll be looking for more projects coming in 2020. We've paid out roughly $220,000 in rebates to the solar projects since we began supporting that endeavor. EV and level 2 chargers. EV stands for electric vehicles. What we're doing right now is, as you're aware, we have 2 electric vehicle charging stations in the city. We have applied to the VW grant program. We're looking at installing 2 electric vehicle fast chargers. These are those high-powered ones that can charge a car in about 30 minutes. And we think we have an excellent package that will be going in on Monday. The spots where the federal government would like to see them are along the interstate. So we're looking at where we tap the interstate at Highway 30 and at 13th Street. We're also asking for additional funds to put in additional level 2 chargers, which are similar to what we have in here. And we're continuing to look at sites that would be interested in hosting electric vehicle charging stations so we can build that out. One other thing and this is exploratory, we're looking, many people, you've probably heard about geothermal, where a house can, instead of using an air conditioner, could put in geothermal. We're actually looking at building a single geothermal site that can serve multiple homes. And a site that we think makes a lot of sense, and this is, again, pilot and preliminary, but we're looking at 321 site, Tripp Street, and seeing if this truly is the wave of the future in energy saving. We think that that development would be a great place to put in geothermal on a neighborhood scale. Also wanted to mention Smart Business Challenge. So this is where with Mary Rankin, with our interns, with Kaylee Lane, we are encouraging our customers to go above and beyond our demand side management. The mayor was recently at our annual meeting and awarded platinum level to 3 of our customers here in Ames for their going above and beyond. Power production's another big area within electric services. The budget here is up a little bit. It's up about 5%. That's found on page 64. Key thing I want to mention, and this is, I want to say it's almost unheard of in our industry, but as of today, we've had over 1,039 days without a lost time accident. Curtis and his team really talk about safety, and the last thing we want anybody to do is not be able to go home after a day at the plant. So that many days is pretty phenomenal in our industry. It's likely you don't even get over a year. And this is close to more than 3 years of my math, almost 3 years. As the council is aware, we've invested in specially coated boiler tubes to reduce wear on them. 7 is up and operating. We're currently working on getting 8 out on the street so that we can also put Inconel coated tubes in the superheat on unit 8. The budget increase here reflects basically there are 3 things that we're working on above and beyond our normal budget. We want to be proactive on our transformer repair. There are transformers that take the generators and step them up, and we're noticing some leaking on the bushing. So before it becomes a problem, we want to get out there and proactively fix that. We're also looking at the asbestos insulation that's within the power plant. We want to remove additional amounts of asbestos. This is a multi-year project, but we want to hit it hard this year and then replace that with non-asbestos insulation. And then we got some work on what we call our soot blower. We've also been working real closely with our brothers and sisters at Resource Recovery, making sure that as we operate, they need us, we need them, and we want to make sure that as we're moving together forward, that we're doing everything we can to take care of the county's refuse-derived fuel. We did hit a peak on July 19th of 128 megawatts. The good news is that's below our all-time peak. Mr. Shanker's always told me that I can't hit another new peak. It's in my performance review. And so this last year, we didn't hit another new peak. So we're going to continue to do what we can to reduce peak and to have our customers use our product more wisely.
Don, you mentioned the transformer, the budget increase reflects proactive transformer. Is that actually in the power plant or is that off-site in the distribution system?
They actually sit right next to the power plant. So if you were to come over and stand at the front door, it would be right around the left-hand side. There's a couple transformers there fenced in.
And these are not like little small ones you buy at the big box store?
No. They're special transformers, and you do not want to lose a generator step-up transformer. It takes your unit offline. Our biggest division is fuel and purchase power. In fiscal year 2021, we're estimating to spend a little over $36 million. Not only does that include the purchase of our natural gas to run the plant, but a large amount of that is our wind contract. And we also buy a considerable amount of energy from the market. That anything we don't produce or doesn't come from wind, we purchase that from the market. The real good news is market energy prices are remaining low, which is keeping our costs lower. Council authorized us to renegotiate our gas contracts, so our fuel prices, specifically natural gas, has dropped 8.5%, and that'll continue to. We've got it at some fixed costs, so that any kind of fluctuation, we have stable energy rates for our customers. We continue to purchase any excess retail solar that's produced. Roughly, we purchased about 346 megawatt hours this last year. For roughly about a little over $20,000. We also have what's called an energy cost adjustment. Basically, what this is used for is as council sets rates, if we have fluctuations in fuel predominantly or energy purchases, the energy cost can go up or go down. And when the rates were improved, I believe in 2015, we actually have a credit on there, which basically means that with the work that we're doing with fuel, with the energy markets, our prices are actually dropping, where you've probably recently heard in some news reports that other utilities in the region are actually raising prices. Ours are going down. On distribution operations and maintenance, the budget there is slightly under $6 million. It's about 4.8% above 1920 adopted. The big expenditure there driving it up is we're looking at buying new transformers and equipment for, again, new developments and replacement of some of the old stuff. So this is driven by growth in our service territory and new developments. Tree trimming is one of our bigger costs in this division. We spend over $300,000 a year to trim trees. Well worth it if you've heard of some of the other utilities in California that probably didn't trim trees as well as they should and the problems they had. I'm proud to say that our people look for that, and the last thing we want to do is create fires caused by power lines. Line workers is an interesting job. There's not a lot of people that want to become line workers. We're seeing a trend, so we're actually working on we created an apprentice position so that we can be trained from within. We've also hired a headhunting entity to help us look for line workers for the future. We responded, I believe that number's smaller than what it actually is, but we've at least responded to 239 after-hour trouble calls. I believe it's a little bit higher. I don't know if Kurt, if you want to.
Yeah.
It's higher. Okay. You said it's higher. And then I mentioned before, by 2020, we've changed out 55% of our streetlights to LEDs, and we should have them all completed in the next 3 years, I believe is the way the budget is laid out. Into tech services, the budget there is slightly over $1 million. That's up a little bit too. The predominant work that they were working on is our Tapajalo substation was in essence rebuilt. From a reliability standpoint, we added breakers so that instead of a line, entire transformer and substation and knocking out all of the customers, we can now separate the substation from an outage on either side of the 69,000 volt line that comes in there. The increased cost this particular year is due to needing to purchase a larger quantity of transformer oil. The other thing that's driving this is this is a place where we're also training from within, and we've got several apprentices that are moving through their training at a good clip. So the personal services are going up faster than would be in a normal division. We're also changing out oil-based breakers with more reliable, what is called SF6 breakers. They're smaller, more reliable, and you don't have the issues with oil. And we continue to put in what are called automated meter or the remote meters. It's an automated meter reading or AMR system. And we currently have about 12% of our meters out there, and we work very closely with water to make sure that as we go into a home or a location, we're doing that together. We're also a lot of places going in where it's hard to get to meters. Maybe they're locked in the basement of an apartment complex or something like that. And it helps our meter readers out quite a bit. Engineering is up a little bit, almost $1 million. It's up 3.9%. Linden is the one that goes out and works with all of our solar customers to make sure that their interconnections not only are good for the customer, but good for the system. Mentioned before that I think he worked on 7 of them this year. Continue to work on relays, controls, breakers, and things like that. And he's managing several of our CIP projects that deal with Tapajalo, and he'll be starting on Ontario here shortly. So looking at it overall, we believe our revenue in the coming year is going to be close to $70 million. We have an estimated fund balance at the beginning of the year of 34.5, little 34.6 million. We are going to be spending some of that down as we continue to work on CIP projects. So the ending balance is looking like it'll come in at around 28 million. We are required to have a minimum fund balance of slightly over $1 million. Or $10 million. This is something that URAB is studying to see, is that the right number? Should it be higher? Should it be lower? So it's a task that URAB will be looking at this year. With all that said, that leaves a unreserved fund balance of $18 million, $18.5 million. The other thing we want to point out that on average our rates to our neighboring utilities, Alliant and the 2 cooperatives, we are 8% lower than those neighboring utilities. Quite a bit lower for our residential customers, slightly lower for our commercial, and we're slightly higher on our industrial rates. With that said, are there any questions?
I have one. It's not related to a line item in here, but I was remembering last July, council moved about net metering to have staff and URAB bring back some alternatives, including maybe Alliance model, to increase the benefit for net metering. Where are we on that?
Thank you for asking about that. In fact, Mr. Shanker was just asking me about that today. So we've looked at a couple of things. One of the requests I think council had is Alliant has a model that they're using. So we took out a random sampling of some of our customers and applied what we're doing to the way Alliant currently does it. And we met with a couple of the customers and showed it to them, and they suddenly said, we don't want the Alliant model anymore. We prefer what you're doing. I think they would still like to see an increase. We're also looking at a different type of model where instead of the issues with our model or the way we do it now is every time we change something, a person has made a decision when they put in a solar panel, and if we change something 5 years, 10 years down the road, it affects theirs. We are currently studying a model where rather than do anything with the energy ongoing, you do some form of a rebate program up front. And we're trying to work out how that would look, and we want to come back probably in the next couple of months and then present that to council before we go much farther on that. But we've got a couple of promising models that we think could work, and it would actually help lower income people to use solar as opposed to the way we do it now. You need a lot of money up front, and then you have this 20-year program. One of the ones, like I said, we're looking at would bring a lot of the money at the start, if we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
So I just have a quick question. It looks like the rebate program budget on page 62 is going down, and we're talking about some new rebates that we want to add, different things like that. Is that going to be adequate funding to continue doing our rebate programs?
Thank you for the question. A couple of years ago, so we've been typically running a budget of about $1.2 million. And a few years ago, we actually spent about 1.5. The last couple of years, it's been difficult even to spend up to $1 million. One of the things we want to look at in our program restructuring is make sure that we're emphasizing or incentivizing the right things. If you walk into a store today, LED lights are about the only thing you can buy. So it doesn't really make sense to incentivize somebody to buy an LED light if that's about the only thing in town. And the goal isn't to reward somebody for buying an LED, it's to incentivize them. So a lot of the cuts are in the lighting rebates and things like that. There are other areas that we want to add to it, but we believe, at least right now, that the funding that we're asking for would be adequate for the coming year. But
Thank
thank you
you.
for asking.
Don, I have a couple questions about the neighborhood geothermal.
Yes.
You're set to talk about that. First, do you know if there are grant monies or subsidies available for that kind of project in the right location? For example, in our NERSA, our census tract of low-income housing.
We are talking to an engineering firm right now, and that's part of their requirement is to be looking at some of the funding sources, grant money and things like that. So that is being studied, yes.
And do you have any sense at all of how much of Ames is actually appropriate for geothermal? I have this vague understanding that it may be somewhat dependent on the soils and strata underneath areas. And
The interesting thing that it's not so much soils and things like that, but it's if you can put in a ground source heat pump before you've bought a traditional air conditioner and furnace and things like that, that's where a lot of the savings are. So you're not putting in redundant systems, and you typically only see people putting them in their homes after their furnace or air conditioner break. This would be an opportunity that again, this is a pilot and being studied, that because this is a greenfield source, that's what you put in to begin with, and you don't even worry about furnaces and air conditioners. So that's what needs to be studied to make sure that it's cost effective.
so we don't really have to worry about our soggy soil or any of the challenges that Ames might face being at the confluence of the Skunk and the Squaw and
Actually, contrary to that, soggy soil is better because you get
Really?
you get intimate contact with the pipe. It's a closed loop system. We put one in when we built our house, a geothermal system. Unfortunately, we're on Alliant. We're not on. I keep begging Don to come out and take care of us, but
Just build a
Anyway.
line right up to the road.
the southwest.
There are a
part-
lot of issues that are involved here, so we're just studying the issue.
Yeah, but I think it's an innovative program. I think
Innovative
it's really
We're-
cool.
We're grappling with where do you put it on public property, and normally individual properties would be responsible for their system, right? If you have a community system, many times to pay for that, you do a homeowners association. Homeowners associations don't work well many times in affordable housing areas. So it may work on that, it may not. The nice thing about this subdivision, we own it,
Mhm.
and if that's a priority for us, we can use it as a laboratory, an experiment. So we've got to learn about it, and there'll be some positive and negative things about it. We don't have all the answers, and we'll stumble
You
along the way. No, so I'm sure you have a lot of great questions that we'll know after if we can build it and in our experience. But I don't think we have the answers for you yet.
One of the
We can
biggest
accomplish it.
One of the things that council talked about is going to much smaller lot sizes. One of the things for geothermal is the spacing of the wells, and they need to be at least 20 to 30 feet on center each way, so you don't basically steal the heat and transfer. So the point is, if we get really, really small lots, you may end up limiting the amount of outside area to drill wells as well too.
That-
So a community
saying.
a community solar is intriguing from a standpoint if you can get one area which is dedicated to that. That might overcome some of that issue. So, but I'm glad we're studying. It's going to be really intriguing to see what the answers are. So, other questions? Okay, before you go, I was going to read this in council comments, but because you got your staff here, I got a letter today in the mail. I want to read it. It's only 2 paragraphs, and it's good. This is from Lynn Terrell, 720 Kellogg. This is a message to let you know of 2 city employees who are great assets to the city. 22 electric meters were changed out at 720 Kellogg Avenue. Jeff contacted me. He doesn't have a last name, I guess, and saying he and Brian would arrive at 8 a.m. on Thursday, January 23rd. Jeff said each apartment would be without electricity for less than 1 minute. That is exactly what happened. Jeff and Brian arrived at 8 a.m. They were courteous, professional, working together with great efficiency. I believe they are an excellent representative for City of Ames. I wish to thank them, and I hope you will also recognize their excellent work. Sincerely, Lynn Terrell. A great example of excellent customer service. Well done. It's just nice getting these kind of letters, and please pass it on. And she did copy Jeff and Brian. I don't have their last names. I'm sure you'll see to it that they get it, but it's just nice to have repeated positive things, about our staff. And thanks for your leadership, and thanks for what you guys are doing. It's an unsung, unrecognized, but the only time we call is when we have people that don't have power, right? So,
Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, they work in Ken Tarks in tech services for us. So appreciate you sharing that.
Don't run away, Don. I just realized I didn't ask for this suicidal squirrel update. How many outages have we had because of squirrels in our transformers or anywhere else?
Boy, I don't know if we have an accurate count. Gentlemen?
Like 3/4 of the.
Yeah.
So
Is it-
the
is
word from
Is the number up?
the word from the group is about 3/4 of our outages are caused by squirrels.
We'll say this, we've animal guarded the south end of town first, and where we've animal guarded, we've virtually eliminated the squirrel.
Oh, good.
All right.
So it's helping. We're getting there.
And the squirrel population is moving to other areas. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Ken, thank you for coming too and serving on your AB. Appreciate you taking time out of your night to come and listen to the presentation. Thank you.
Fire safety, I think. Rich?
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
Pleasure to be here. I'd like to introduce some staff that are here tonight. I'm excited to have them here. We got our building official, Sarah Van Metren. We got our Deputy Fire Chief, Tom Hackett, and Doug Allen. All 3 of them have been instrumental in putting the budget together and have a vital impact on keeping us within budget and moving our inspections and fire departments forward. But on behalf of all the members of the Ames Fire Department, thank you for allowing this opportunity to present our 2021 budget to you. Just a quick organizational chart letting you know how we're spread out through the fire department and also inspections. We currently have 3 openings right now. One is the train officer position, which we hope to have filled later this month. Then we also have 2 other openings in our firefighter positions, which we've put those on hold right now as we work with HR to include some language for them to be emergency medical technicians. Last year, Mary Greeley canceled our EMS contract, which covers our incentive pay for all of our firefighters to maintain their EMS license. Mary Greeley canceled basically for two main reasons. The first was they wanted us to move to the EMT level, and the second was they didn't want to pay for extrication equipment or training anymore. I've had the opportunity to meet with Mary Greeley multiple times. We've had good communications, but discussions are still underway and we haven't got anything finalized. So hope to be back soon, but it's still a work in progress. If you're following along in the book, just wanted to point out the page numbers. We're broken down into two major programs, fire safety and building safety. So tonight I'm going to take you on a little journey highlighting some of the amazing programs that allowed us to better serve our community. Lots of pictures, so I hope you guys like pictures. You have all the numbers in front of you, so I'm going to tell some stories about some of the cool stuff that we're doing. We do have an overall recommendation of a 3.3% increase for fire safety. This increase includes the cost of one additional firefighter for Suppression and Emergency Response Division, which will increase our overall FTEs to the 60.7. I also want to recognize Iowa State University and their 25% commitment to our operational and debt service, which is nearly going to be nearly $2 million this next year. The partnership between our two organizations has provided multiple opportunities for both the university and the city of Ames. From grant opportunities for ISU professors from different programs, sharing hazardous materials, response equipment, just a great relationship that helps us keep our students safe as well as our visitors, faculty, and staff that are here. One of the cool stories that we've had an opportunity to work on, this is, we've been working with Iowa State doing some simulations. So this is actually at the space station. So a couple months ago, I was at the International Space Station doing some firefighting, believe it or not. This was all at the C4 lab at ISU campus. It was a great opportunity to work with them. They're actually doing some testing on adaptive stress training for hazardous conditions. And working with their professors there, we had the opportunity to have a whole bunch of biometric sensors hooked up to our bodies, simulate a zero gravity environment. We were sitting in a chair and had virtual reality goggles on. And we had to go through and try to determine where the fire was in the space station and then try to extinguish it. And let me be the first to tell you that a fire in space is scary. I'll take a fire down here on Earth any day of the week. So it was a great experiment. In fact, I just got done talking to Tor, and him and Dr. Neer were at NASA last week presenting some of their research to them. So pretty exciting that we get to be a part of research that's being done at Iowa State to help NASA out. We also work with Dr. Godwin Song and ISU Laboratories for Functional Textiles and Protective Clothing on multiple grants. They're looking to improve firefighting structural gear. So often they'll borrow gear from us. They'll bring us gear to try out. We'll do focus groups with them. We work very closely with ISU EH&S on all their responses, their entire team, and along with ISU Police, and we staff their emergency operations center during all the football games. So the relationship, I think, is pretty obvious with Iowa State, and we continue to nurture that and meet multiple times. In fact, later this week, we have a meeting with Environmental Health and Safety looking at confined space improvements for the university. Get into the administration and support budgets on pages 42 and 43. There's really four main areas that I'm going to talk about tonight and give you a little update where we're at. The first is our EOC development. That's our Emergency Operations Center. A little bit with CPR, some of the outreach we're doing, an update on our strategic plan, and then also the Ames Public Safety Training Center that you see in the background of that picture there. The first area I want to highlight from our admin services, or from our fire admin budget, is just the work that we're putting in to develop our Emergency Operations Center even further. We are in the process of developing our EOC and the staff to prepare for a large multi-jurisdictional functional exercise that's going to involve local, county, and hopefully even state resources, which is slated later for April 2022. So we have a little bit of time, but we're going to use every bit of that time to help prepare our EOC to make sure that we're ready as we test out our connectivity to the county, and the county checks out their connectivity back to the state to get resources during a public emergency. In preparation for the exercise, we've ramped up our EOC training. Just last fall, members from our inspection division, Sarah and her entire office were there. Members from Park and Rec, Ames PD were also there, and we did damage assessment training with Story County Emergency Management. And that's the bottom picture that you see there with the map and the different damage ratings there. That's really important following a disaster that comes through. One what that does is our capabilities, they're web-based. They're geospatial, so they'll actually working with our GIS department, GIS, we can actually map those out and find out where they are. They can be viewed in real time, and this process and state-sponsored software will be beneficial for damage mapping, resource allocation, and importantly, federal disaster recovery funding that we work closely with Dwayne and his team to get, which having all this information at our fingertips will be very helpful. I'm also excited to announce that in conjunction with Story County Emergency Management and thanks to Chief Allen, we spent 4 days spread over 2 different sections, training and nationally certifying over 50 city employees and county officials in intermediate and advanced incident command systems. And that'll be really important as we develop our emergency operations center that they have that national certification. So some pretty exciting
Rich,
things.
can you, I just been, one of the privileges I have is serving on the EMS, and Rich comes with us. But the things that you have to deal with today is just amazing. And I never thought about it, but some of the stuff that goes through our city on rail, if we have a derailment, it's not going to be pretty. These guys are the first line of defense and planning. We talked about this last night, planning. There's some opportunities coming up, I think, that we can potentially take some council members to a orientation session that I think would be very helpful to understand what goes on. But we are blessed to have Keith Morgan, and they're working with city staff, and our staff really provides a lot of help as well too. But thanks to you guys for what you do. But the point is, you don't think about that stuff, but if you don't have a plan in place, you're really in trouble essentially. And I know you guys spend a lot of time talking about that, don't you?
We do.
Can you comment on that just a little more in terms of what's going on? And
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our fire department on the side for response. We are trained to the technician level, which is the highest for hazardous materials response. We also contract with Des Moines through the county. So if we have an event that requires additional resources or an advanced level of expertise, that we can bring in Des Moines Hazmat to help us out with an incident. We're just working very closely with Keith and his agency over there and Melissa to make sure that we get the training so that our EOC in the event of an emergency that we're ready to go. We also have Story County, Iowa alerts that we keep up to date and we have available to us if we need to do a mass notification to the public for a shelter in place or perhaps an evacuation of an area.
there's tremendous partnership in Story County between all the different, I think there's 13 or 14 different communities, I think, that have mayors or fire chiefs or volunteers that come to talk about it. And it's basically something goes on in one community, you're going to try and help. You have a system put together. So it's just extremely well organized. And I think Story County is well served by the planning and the people behind it, essentially.
Yeah, we're pretty excited for the functional exercise in 2022. There's a grant opportunity that I know that Story County EMA is looking to secure, but it's going to be about a $30,000 investment to bring in proctors, facilitators to help us run through the exercise. So we want to make sure we're ready and make good use of that opportunity.
Rich, do we have any responsibility for the NADL and emergency response?
We do,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And we do train with them on occasion. We've go out, we've done some different exercises. They're a unique facility with the shower in, shower out, and some of the airlocks, which makes entry and removal of a victim or a patient very difficult. So we've done a lot of training with their staff to make sure that they can be their best resource to get somebody out of those areas and bring them out to us where we can start patient care versus going in through airlocks where we lose our ability to not get contaminated.
And how about emergency management? Do they have their own plan out there?
They do, yep. They share with all of the mayors and with the fire departments. Their ESF, emergency service functions, that we review on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Absolutely. The next program I'm excited about is our CPR program. We've been working very closely with our HR department, and we've set a goal to train every city employee over the next 2 years in life-saving CPR. So we're offering citywide classes on multiple occasions, whether it's AED, CPR that needs a certification. We take that very serious. We think we have a great opportunity to share what training we've had with others. We have some that are nationally certified to teach others so they can be certified. So teaming up with HR, we've been able to offer that. In fact, the picture you here see is some of Don's folks out at the power plant. We went out to them to make it easier since they can't come to City Hall always. They need to keep up and running. So we'll come to you and do CPR training. I'm also excited. We've been working with our EMS team, and we're hopeful on making CPR a publicly offered class. It may not be a certification class necessarily, but an opportunity to train the public, because we know that bystander CPR is vital to saving a life. And if we can teach people how to do the chest compressions only, and it makes a difference in one person's life, then it's money well invested. So we're excited for that. Here's just a couple little photos from our strategic planning outreach events that we've done. We've been lucky enough to hit 68 different representative groups, from nursing homes, businesses, ISU Research Park, co-ops, civic groups, you name it. We've reached out to just about everybody that we can as we've continued to work on our strategic plan. The feedback that we receive from these events has been outstanding and is in helping us craft our strategic plan. So hope to have something here in the near future for you guys to review. A little update on our training site. What a great concept that we have here that our training officer came up with, that we've been able to implement, and Steve's been grateful in helping us move this forward along with Ames PD. This is out by the city warehouse. It's using old shipping containers that we can buy pretty inexpensive, and it's modular. We can build, and as our budgets allow us to, we can add more, we can take away. We've done a lot of the work through grants that we've been able to get. So here you can see we're setting the second story on a 2-story prop that we'll have for firefighting, and hoping to get this up and running later this spring and actually start running people through. So a lot of work's gone into it. Yeah, it's pretty exciting time for our department. First time that between PD and fire that we'll have a joint training site for pennies on the dollar. Talk a little bit about our suppression emergency action budget. That's on 44 and 45. 2 major items affecting next year's budget is the addition of the 1 firefighter and a decrease in our commodities as we advance some equipment purchases to this year's adjusted budget. Some of that's been due to with 2 new deputy fire chiefs. They have a new eye, and they are great with the budget, and I really appreciate their help. They've done some reorganizing. We've moved some funds around. We're trying to get everything on a replacement plan so we can plan down the road. That's been very important for our group. So we've moved a few items you'll see in our adjusted budget. We've moved those up to purchase those. The image you see on your left is a photo of what our thermal imaging cameras should look like. That's not what they currently look like, unfortunately. The technology that we're using is about 10 years old. We need to get those updated, so that's why we've advanced that forward to get 3 new thermal imaging cameras. They're not cheap, but they are life-saving tools that allow us to see in a fire where otherwise this would be smoke-laden building. You would not be able to see your hand in front of your face, so a vital tool. Also, you see our Rice rescue suits. There's a cruise out trained at Ada Hayden. We've duct taped, sent in, repaired the suits as much as we can. Their useful life has come to an end. So we're excited to get those replaced. And we have those staged at each of the fire stations because we don't know. Ada Hayden's just where we train, but the number of retention ponds and waterways that we have, we want to make sure that every station is able to respond very quickly. And something really cool that's new for our organization, our community is on your right-hand side, that's a slide-in unit. That's a small water tank and a pump set up with hose that we have. That'll be used to help with vegetation, grass fires along rural-urban interface along Interstate 35, Highway 30. The ditch fires that we get out in the fields, we can actually take this. It slides in the back of a pickup truck during the summer, fall months. And then the winter months, we can take it out. But we can actually drive out into cornfields and put out fires. It'll be a great tool for us to better serve Iowa State University. It's also a much more sustainable approach for fighting fires, grass fires, instead of having a big fire truck out there on a busy highway where it can get hit. Not that we are okay with anybody getting hit, but having a pickup truck with a slide-in unit can help us get off the road a little bit more, maybe get down to the ditch to where our crews and our equipment's out of danger and we can get the fire put out. Be great along shared use paths, just a versatile approach, and then also very sustainable. So we're excited for that new piece of equipment to arrive.
Is that a full-size truck bed thing? I mean, it's tough to tell the scale.
It is, yeah. I apologize for the photo. It is. We have a short bed on our Rescue 1 pickup truck. It's an F350, and it sits in the back of that. A great tool, a great resource for our community. One thing I want to just hit pause real quick and just share a little bit about how important it is to have strategically placed fire stations throughout our community and highly trained firefighters. The photo you see here is from last year, a fire we had at a duplex over on 28th Street. The fire actually started on the outside of the structure and worked its way into the soffit and got into the attic area. one of the most dangerous fires that we'll encounter because, as you guys know, that in the attic, there is no fire protection, there is no drywall, there are no smoke alarms. This was actually caused by carelessly discarded smoking materials that the wind picked up and started a fire in the corner and worked its way up. But why I'm sharing this photo response, the highly trained individuals, it ended up only being a $31,000 loss. No one was hurt. We were able to get everybody out. The damage, it looks pretty bad from the outside, but on the inside it was minimal. So the next photo I want to share with you is just how effective we are on the fire ground. It's great to have highly trained individuals, strategically placed fire departments, stations, but when you get on scene, if you can't do the job to get the fire put out and do so quickly, then there's not much there, right? So this kind of highlights how effective we are. So what we're looking at is not only, so we're looking only at the building that are at risk that were on fire. So the valuations that you see down below are, for like in 2012, we had over $86 million of total valuation that had fires in them. But if you look at the total saved, we saved $84 million. So overall, our savings that we were able to protect the community was at a little over 97%. So that means in our community, our fire losses held to less than 10% of the fires that we respond to, which is, I'm going to toot our own horn. That's impressive. And that's because our crews are trained. We have strategically placed stations. But I think it also goes without saying is that it's important because we have great building and fire codes as well as that we keep our fire loss low. We have great community awareness, neighborhoods that people are looking out for each other, well-maintained equipment. We have a reliable water distribution system, great dispatchers. The list goes on and on. To me, what this slide really emphasizes is the reality that we're using a total city perspective when it comes to serving our customers, and we're able to keep our fire losses low because of that, with all the other great departments that we get to team up with.
There's quite a lot of fluctuation in those, right? Like the 2013 number there.
Yep.
It was like 2016. So was there just a fire in a very expensive building? Is that how that?
Yeah. So in 2013, there was a couple fires in the schools that started in bathrooms with kids messing around, and then we also had the AmeriCorps fire.
I see.
I think it was Ball Plastics at the time, possibly.
I see. Yep, that would add up. Yeah.
Yep. And then in 2018 was the ISU power plants included in that figure. So that's kind of why those numbers, I can look at those and I can tell you what some of those spikes are from. Luckily, none of those were big losses.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Quick response.
Yeah, thank you.
This next slide, I'm sorry, it doesn't do a great job of telling the story, but it shows a breakdown of our incident types. And medical calls still tend to be the number one call for us. They're just shy of 60%, and they have been since quite a while since we've been delivering EMS service. False alarms, you can also see, are up there. The number of structure fires that we have are low, relatively speaking, and we continue to see a slight drop off, which Steve and I had a great conversation about how important that is. That's a fire chief's goal, is at the end of the day to have no fires. That's a great day. So we're working that direction. And to give you a little more of a better snapshot of how that breaks down, I've broken this down for the 2019 calendar year incidents. And you can see medical assist calls represent 2,720 calls for us, while our structure fires, we were able to keep at 39. False alarms were 805. You can see the numbers there. I think they speak for themselves. This year we were close to 5,000 calls, and next year I'm anticipating we'll break 5,000. Something else that we spend a lot of time on is training. One of the neat photos that I like on the left-hand side there is Huxley Fire Department. We invited them up one late evening to come up and work on one of our forcible entry props that we have. We don't always work with the county agencies, but when we do, we got to be spot on. So when there's opportunities to train together, we invite them up. We take advantage of the knowledge that we have to share and some of the resources that we have. And that was just a great example of them coming to Station 2 and getting in some great training time. We spend a lot of time on driver education. We have big, expensive pieces of equipment that need to make it on scene. So when our drivers, we don't always go over the speed limit. We don't go through red lights. They are trained to make sure that we're making good decisions, because if we don't ever make it on scene, we're not there to assist. So we invest a lot of time and energy in making sure our drivers are well trained. The picture on the right is our hazmat team. I talked a little bit about we're all technician level certified. I just want to remind the council that we're so much more than a fire department. We are truly an all hazards department responding to hazmat, confined space, trench rescue, water rescue, ice rescue, rope rescue. Basically, if someone needs rescued, we're the ones that are going to respond. And so that means we need to be highly trained in multiple disciplines and just not firefighting.
Nice swimming pool you have there, by the way.
Mhm. It's a little bit surreal seeing the hazmat suits against the wading pool.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. We just don't show up at events in our hazmat suits. We understand the impact that could have on our community. So great resource that we have. A great partnership with Iowa State for our hazmat response and capabilities. Here I'm just showing off a little bit grant opportunity that we had through the Alliant Energy Foundation. It's not a huge grant, but for me, this grant was really important because it's part of our carcinogen exposure reduction efforts. Nationally, firefighters are at a greater risk for cancer. So we try to do everything that we can within the fire department to take care of our number one resource, our people. You can see Chief Hackett's on their left-hand side. He's holding the particulate hood, and that's what we were able to purchase with this grant. These hoods keep out about 99% of the particulates that are inside of a fire, reducing the exposure for our firefighters so they can focus on fighting the fire and not worrying about the exposure to the carcinogens. We've also adopted on-scene decontamination efforts, try to set hot and cold zones within the fire station that gear does not go beyond this area. And crews are also mindful of washing down the inside of the apparatus because we have children, we have families that come through and walk through the fire station, walk through our fire apparatus. We don't want carcinogens there. We don't want them exposed to that. So we try to be as cognizant as possible of how we take care of our equipment that the public's going to have hands-on with. Same way with our crews. So we appreciate the Alliant Energy Foundation and the grant that we were able to secure. We stay focused on peer fitness training and obviously health and wellness. We've also been working hard to make sure we're taking care of our number one resource, our firefighters. Our peer fitness team has been excellent throughout this whole process. We're using a holistic approach when it comes to firefighter health and wellness through a number of different programs such as fitness, mental health awareness, injury prevention, and developing healthy eating habits. Trying to take care of our crews. I'm excited to talk about our fire prevention and safety education. It's on page 46 and 47. I'm going to hit on a few different areas. There you see our training prop. That's a Bull-X. We can take that out to just about any business and do live fire training on how to use a fire extinguisher. It uses LP cylinder. There's a dead man switch, so if somebody gets too close or maybe is not comfortable putting the fire out, or we want to help build a little confidence, we'll let the fire go out a little bit early. But there's other people out there that are bound and determined to get the fire out no matter what it takes. And we'll keep handing them fire extinguishers until they do. But a great program that we have.
Can you train me on this one that's down here? Because I don't know how to use it.
I would be happy to. Yep, absolutely. Yes. I hope we never need to use it, but we want to make sure people are trained. The image you see on the left is the Bull-X, just kind of broken down what it looks like. And I'm excited to report that this last year we trained 673 community members on how to use a fire extinguisher. We did that through businesses and different outreach. But not only are we teaching them a skill for their business, but that's a lifelong skill they take home. And it's one thing to look at a fire extinguisher and think you know how to use it versus actually using it. This is a picture of Jenny from Sam's Club. If you follow us on Facebook, this was a post we had on December 14th about how Jenny basically saved Christmas. Everyone was in Sam's Club doing last minute shopping. There was a fire in the freezer. She picked up a fire extinguisher and put the fire out before it spread. And so we touted it on Facebook that Jenny basically saved Christmas for everyone. So a great example of how training paid off and somebody was able to make a difference. Community risk reduction is also important. Here's an image. We're out. This is one of our lieutenants doing an inspection and a pre-plan of the animal shelter. I did get a few calls that day asking if we could adopt and bring back to the fire station. We did not, but there was temptation there. But also I want to highlight partnerships that we have. We were lucky enough to team up with the Elks Lodge of Ames, and we were able to distribute 83 carbon monoxide detectors in at-risk homes throughout our community, working with GIS, identifying these different tracks in our community. Great program. They came to us, had some grant money, and said, how can we best impact the community? We said we got the perfect plan, and we were able to get that in place. We also teamed up with the American Red Cross, and we installed 128 smoke detectors in 52 at-risk homes. So with these partnerships have been great, allowing us to get those valuable pieces of equipment into homes that can make a difference, that early detection notification can mean all the difference for someone. Community outreach is also very important. Here in the background, you can see this is a picture from our open house that we had this last year. We had some people out, some future firefighters, getting some nozzle time in. We also had one of our junior firefighters looking at the fire truck, Freddie there. That was pretty exciting to see his face light up and have him come in with all his gear. It's truly just a great day. I think if you have the opportunity to come to the station, you'll see us. We're walking around with grins on our faces because and there's the future of our fire department, but also that's our community in there. And to be in relationship with them and have those opportunities is really important to us. We also do a lot on Facebook. We try to post different resources for people. We attend neighborhood block parties, shop with the firefighter. I know you've heard of the shop with the cop, but we actually have shop with the firefighter program, national night out, back to school events, fire department open houses. Being in community is so important for us to help spread that fire safety message. That's our biggest impact is when we're at a neighborhood block party, building those relationships. Those are when the questions come about smoke detectors, about CO detectors and how they work. So we're grateful for the community outreach. And a great picture from this year's open house that we had. We had over 1,200 people come through the fire station. You can see it's pretty tight in there, but it was an exciting day. And we look forward to doing it again next year. Moving over on to building safety, pages 48 and 49, we're looking at
Before you shift,
yeah.
one question. So are we looking at perhaps at some point the adoption of drones in the fire department? I know some fire departments are using drones for some of the things you're talking about, imaging and maybe even some rescue, dropping life preservers in a lake situation. Have we looked into that at all?
Yeah, actually we have. And I believe we've set some money aside along with Ames PD and the city manager's office to update our drone with IR technology, so infrared. So
It's that list of money from the general fund recommending in the current year. It's an upgrade. We had a drone now. We're upgrading it and we'll have the infrared camera on it.
which will be great for missing people searches. If we have a car accident and we need to, if somebody's been ejected, to get an eye in the sky to look down with that infrared will be.
I'm not sure it's large enough to carry equipment or anything. That would be a much larger type of device, but it'll help for rescues, help during floods, help during, we have people who, they're police or missing persons they're trying to find.
I saw one demonstrate over in Council Bluffs, and theirs, they have the ability to drop a life preserver so someone goes to the ice. I mean, there's some really interesting developments that are happening. I was just curious if we've had
Not that generation. We're upgrading to the infrared right now.
Yeah.
We may get there sometime, but
They're this pretty amazing advancements they're making. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
For building safety, we're looking at a 3.4% increase overall. The picture you see back here is the basement and swimming area of the new high school being constructed. A lot going on over there. I'm happy to report that there's going to be no building permit fee increase this year. We collect, just to give you a little bit of background about our permit process, we collect 100% of the permit fee before issuing a permit. So if you want to get a water heater or building a deck, you will pay in advance to get your permit, but you can get it same day. Some years, I also want to talk a little bit about our revenue and expenditures and how we work. And you can follow along on page 48, but some years we're able to cover our expenditures. That's our goal through our revenue. Our crystal ball isn't always clear on what projects are going to be coming into town. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But we try to always break even. We want our expenditures to be covered by our revenue. Right now, you can see that we are going to have to dip into the general fund a little bit. That's what we're projecting, at least for this next year. That's not our goal, since this is the permit fees are user-based fees, so we want to keep those with the users. However, that's something I wanted to make you aware of how that process works. And we won't know until the end of the year what projects will come in, and hopefully we don't have to dip into the general fund. But we're anticipating lower revenue than what we've experienced in the past to cover our expenditures.
just to clarify, we don't charge like an attorney would charge for all their time based on actual time. That's not how we do it. Tim, you always ask, what do other cities do? A lot of cities are doing the way we do. So we have, why don't you explain how we charge? It's not by actual time spent.
Yeah, so it's based on the type of permit that you're pulling and then the evaluation of the property. Sometimes we have more inspections at a property. Sometimes it's fewer. Sometimes it's more phone calls during the plan review process. It really just depends on the the contractor, their comfort level, how well they understand the regulations and the code that we're adopting here in town. So
So you might get complaints, oh, the person didn't spend that many hours here, or why should I play the same as someone else? That's a technique that's used throughout the country. And in electric, there's things like outlets, they charge by number of outlets and plumbing fixtures. But I think it's a technique that's used predominantly around the country, isn't it?
yeah, it is best practice, honestly. Yep. Especially with collecting the fee up front and then
So by doing that, we have estimates on the type of construction we're going to have for next year. If it comes in less, we may be short. That's why we have balances in the general fund. Sometimes a project we never thought about could be a project, I don't care what it is, a new industry comes in town and may generate more revenue. So we'll have excess revenue for that time. But it's not tracked on an hour for hour basis. I just want you to understand. Sometimes people don't agree with that or they complain about it, but that's the system that's generally accepted.
thank you, Steve. We're also not anticipating an increase in rental fees this year. In the background, you can just see that's Bricktown just off of South Duff that's being constructed. I want to talk a little bit about our citizen self-service portal. So this has been up for a little while now, and it has been a big improvement for both our customers and us in regards to how we conduct business. We've gotten good feedback. It started out a little bit slow. We had some concerns, but Sarah just got another comment from an individual today who was a little apprehensive and said, you know what, I got to give you a shout out. The program's actually working really well, and I appreciate it. So that was good news to hear. But the nice thing about the citizen self-service portal is that you're able to pull a permit any time of the day, any day of the week. It doesn't matter. You can pull a permit. You have the ability to pay by credit card, which is a nice feature that we offer through that. You get to schedule your own inspections, so you can do it at your convenience instead of calling in and trying to work around somebody else's schedule. You look and you schedule when it works for you. Then you also get live updates on where your inspector's at, the status of their inspection, if it's passed. Because sometimes when you come out to the job site, you're not always able to pass the inspection, or you may not be there. You can hop on the portal and you can see if your inspection passed, and you can keep working on whether it's hanging drywall or getting that water heater installed. So a great improvement for our customers and a great improvement for our inspection division. Also want to touch a little bit on page 49. We talk about the number of building permits, and Sarah's been gracious enough to break it down a little bit for me and for you guys here tonight to let you know how many commercial versus residential permits we're pulling. You can see commercial there was 1,123, and the breakdown there, residential, we had 2,288 permits pulled. And we look at the building under residential, 364 permits. Those could be remodels, deck additions. It's not just new homes. So it's not on the slide, but I also wanted to just give you a little bit of insight to the number of new homes that were added in Ames. In 2018, we issued building permits for the construction of 96 new homes, single-family dwellings. And then we issued permits for 343 multi-dwelling units in 2018. 2019, there was 63 permits issued for new single-family dwelling homes and 275 for multi-dwelling units. Some information for you. So we get the question, why are codes important? Why do we need codes? I think we know well, but I think this picture just speaks volumes to the importance of codes. This was the research park. We had a fire in one of the buildings out there. What they were trying to do was make their own homemade electrical panel. They had 3 different basically dryer cords that they were plugging into the outlets. And you can see in the middle picture there that they fried whatever circuit boards they had in there. Not a good idea at all, obviously violating multiple codes. You can see in the picture, if we zoom out just a little bit, we have Nick Patterson, one of our electrical inspectors there, is walking around. But what scares me the most is all the remodeling that they've done inside this building. Number one, without a permit, because this would not be allowed. But that's OSB, it's plywood. There's glues in there. There is no protection. These are the stories when people said the fire moves so fast. This is why the fire moves so fast, is because people do altercations without us knowing and put in materials that are not approved to be inside of a structure. It also covers up sprinkler heads. It prevents the fire engineering protection systems that were designed to protect that area to not function the way they're supposed to. So to me, this is a great illustration of the importance of codes and people doing things the right way. our goal is we want to come alongside customers and help them be successful in their projects because we want them to all go home at the end of the day. Also want to hit on just the community outreach that Sarah and her division do nonstop. In fact, Sarah was meeting with the Ames Home Builders Association just this week, was there talking about the importance of economizers and how to work with HVAC systems. And if you have an economizer that's that you might need a code modification for, how to work through that process. But the inspections divisions continue to attend the monthly the Home Builders Association meetings, meets with local groups, the Ames Property Managers Network, Central Iowa Board of Realtors, League of Women Voters, the ISU Home Builders Club, just a number of groups to keep that community outreach going. We want to hear from our customers what's working well, what's not. Here's some updates coming with the code that we want you to be aware of. Here's something with the plumbing code that might be changing down the future. How do you feel about that? Should we look at amending the code? Just a lot of great opportunities to hear from our customers, and that's really important. The picture on the left is kind of cool. It shows in the division, we were able to get everybody logoed shirts. And I think that's really important when we go out in the public, especially after a disaster. Somebody shows up on your door and says you're with the inspection division and you need to have these things done. We want to make sure they know that we're with the Ames inspection division and just not somebody that came into town that's following storms. And then on the right was the inaugural neighborhood blitz that was held on August 19th. We did it from the hours of 3 to 8 p.m. To welcome students back. And this was done in the near campus neighborhood. We teamed up with Ames Police, Planning and Housing, the ISU Department of Student Conduct, inspections, and the fire department were out there. And we went around and handed out 250 bags to 98 different properties that day, informing them about local codes, rental requirements. But we were also very welcoming and letting them know, welcome to the community. Here's resources in case you have questions. How can we help you make you feel at home here? It was a great program, and we're excited to get it out again this year. I think we had a great success, and even had some parents that were moving kids in that said, wow, this is cool that you guys are coming out and talking to us, letting us know. I didn't know we could do that, or that we had that option to do that. So with that, I thank you for your time, and we'll gladly entertain any questions that you have.
Any questions? Thanks for doing the neighborhood blitz. It's a great idea in terms of really building relationship with the students and bridging that gap between city and law enforcement and fire and just being ambassadors for us. So thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
John, what's the chance of doing a 5-minute break? Then for 2 hours.
Sure. We'll take a quick 5-minute break then. Go ahead. To law enforcement, animal control. Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Pleasure to be here as always and get a chance to hit some highlights. I'm going to call out some trends tonight. Many of you know about our work and know the things that we do in the community, and you follow us on Facebook, I'm sure, right?
It's amusing.
Excuse me.
Good Facebook.
I'm
feed.
sorry. I forgot
Oh,
that we
the
don't.
recorder.
She's actually the most important person here.
You can give her 5 minutes.
I missed it.
Someone needed her.
Oh. Ready? Okay. Sorry.
So joining me tonight are the people who do the real work and really some very talented people we're privileged to have as part of our city team sitting behind me. I want to make just take a moment to introduce them, make sure you know who they are and thank them for their work. Jeff Hoff is currently in the role of patrol commander. Our commanders rotate, and they have done enough of that rotation, have enough experience that any one of them can run this department on any given day. And really proud of Jeff's leadership in the patrol division and what they've accomplished this year. You'll like some of the numbers that you see. They're working hard every day. Jason Tuttle, our other commander, is in charge of the investigations division. Citizens count on us to solve crimes quickly. The bar is pretty high for us in this community in terms of clearing those critical cases. And Jason leads the team that does that and does a good job of it. Successfully prosecuted some really complicated, serious cases. And I'll call out a couple of things, a couple of challenges that that group is facing as we work through this. Doug Houghton is a support services manager. He's really kind of a magician. Doug has led, in partnership with some other parties, the radio project and has been a real kind of a cornerstone in accomplishing that critically important transformation for us. Doug supervises the records division, the unsung folks who do the work behind the scenes, supervises the communication center, 100,000 non-emergency calls, 30,000 emergency calls, 4,000 EMD calls in a year. That's a tremendous amount of traffic going through our center. And Doug supervises and manages that group. And then he also creates the budget that that has to pass muster with Steve and Brian and his team, and then eventually gets to you. And so, as you know, that's a lot of work. So we're really fortunate to have a talented senior team who makes my job easy and makes this community as safe as it is. So let me start and tell you a little bit about the work. I've tried to put some pages numbers on here for you to follow. I want to begin just underscoring something. We see our mission in this community as relationship building and problem solving. There's a law enforcement dimension to our problem solving tools, but there are many other dimensions to our problem solving tools as well. We work closely with neighborhoods. We work closely with merchants. We work closely with neighborhood groups, social service providers. And this is probably a good place to mention the fact that I think Ames is kind of unique in the strength of the partnership between our local departments. We had fire department up here. We had Parks and Rec department up here. You had Public Works last night. Those folks work side by side with our command staff and our police officers we're a small town. We're a small number of people, and we don't necessarily have a person assigned to every problem that comes up. And so we can call Public Works in the middle of the night, or we can get fire together and tackle those problems. And we don't say it enough. We really appreciate the partnership, the commitment to teamwork and problem solving on behalf of the citizens in the community. And it's one of the things that makes Ames a really special place. And you need to hear that because it doesn't happen everywhere, and it really does happen here. So thank you to those other departments that have gone before us. They help things happen that we could never do on our own. So relationship building and problem solving, critical parts of our mission, particularly critical in a university community where we have to form those relationships, again, with new students each year. And we enjoy it. We hire people who enjoy it, but that doesn't make it any less important. This budget includes an additional patrol officer. The last time we had a chance to add someone, we added them to our Safe Neighborhoods team and have used that function to add to our analytical capabilities. We're doing more forecasting. We're doing more crime type analysis. We're doing more zonal analysis and heat mapping of things and trying to use our resources better. I wish I could instantly produce a supervisor. I have 2 supervisors injured right now and one who has resigned to take a new and exciting, better position. So we'll do some temporary appointments. We'll try to backfill with them. But the ultimate assignment for this new person will be to supplement our high call volume times, which is generally 3 p.m. to 7 or 8 p.m., depending on the time of year. We really use every person we can get during that time period, and sometimes citizens are waiting 45 minutes or an hour for somebody to respond to a moderately severe call. So we appreciate the additional staffing and translate that into service for the citizens on the street. And that's where we'll go. Let me move to the next slide. It's also kind of an overarching issue that I want to mention to you, things that I think you should be proud of in this community. We certainly are proud of them. We have a number of years of collaboration behind us now on a shared dispatch and record system. The city, the county, and the university share that system. it means for the taxpayers that we're sharing the cost of that system as well, and we're sharing the expertise and support of that system. Sometimes the nature of our organizations creates some conflict. We have to work through those, but sharing these scarce resources in this day and age, I think, is really important. And these are expensive, and they are in support of critical functions. So we spend some money on them, and the opportunity to spend that in a shared initiative, I think really is just, it's a good way to conduct our business. And I think you should be proud of supporting that. You've followed down the same path and been willing to support this partnership around updating our communication system. We have a outstanding partnership. And your leadership and support of that has been critical to the success of it. We will have interoperable communications across the county. We'll have interoperable communications across our departments, and we'll have the ability to plug outside communications into that on a very sophisticated level using state-of-the-art, highly reliable radio technology. It's just an absolutely exciting upgrade for us. And it's a partnership, and an important partnership. SciRite is already running on the transition system, and ISU is switching to the transition system right now, and police department will switch next week. So this is becoming real, and it's very exciting. Looking to the future, there is a data network designed to serve first responders called FirstNet, and FirstNet is being deployed in this area. The exciting news for us is that as this rolls out and matures a little bit more, we will see some segregated ability to communicate among first responders, independent of commercial networks. There are times during an ISU football game where our data transmission dwindles to nothing. There are times during major emergencies where we're concerned about our ability to transfer data between the communications center or between the command post and our units in the field. And so FirstNet coming online and picking up that, independent of those commercial networks, which do get overloaded these days, will be an exciting development. The other good news about that is the FirstNet rates are very similar to the commercial rates right now. So we're not talking about coming back in front of you, as far as I can tell, with a big rate increase to accomplish this. When that happens, we'll all be in better shape. Fire introduced some of the planning that we're doing for emergency preparedness and emergency response situation. This is part of the backbone to make sure that we are up, running, and efficient during those times when something terrible happens in town. So you will hear more. Last year, you funded an initiative for us to transfer to a commercially supported policy development, policy management system. And while it wasn't a huge amount of money, it was a change in how we approach this. And I just want to take a moment to report back to you that it's been very successful, and in hindsight, it was a very good move. The insurance company is picking up, the city's insurer, ICAP, is picking up about a third of the cost for the first 3 years of making this transition. So they're excited about it and willing to show that with their money. As we've gotten into this and looked at their approach to policymaking and the system that they've put together, as we have our internal legal team review these policies and legal principles come through, we're happy with the level of expertise that they're providing. We're happy with the approach they're providing. Our officers are embracing it, and it was originally proposed as a 3-year project to get fully shifted over. Commander Huff has led that initiative, and we're already 70% done.
Wow.
So very good news, very good for the city, very good for risk management, and I think good for our officers. Clarifies policies, keeps us current, and keeps them educated about it. So thank you for investing in us, giving us this opportunity last time, and I'm happy to come back and provide some good news to you. We have a pretty significant training budget in the department. We do a lot of annual required training. We maintain instructor level capability in a number of our critical areas. Pardon me. We expect our people to have in our organization to have a high level of expertise in crime scene management, firearms, defensive tactics, driving, all of those things where we teach and certify. You can also tell from this slide that we're committed to working with a diverse community. And so we do training each year on diversity and inclusion with our officers. We're building on a foundation that you see here of things we've already done. So the level of our training is really, I think, interesting and exciting as we move forward and build on these concepts with our officers. And it is really fun. We have a generation of smart officers who care about this community. They're interested in learning more. They're interested in engaging with this community. They learn from the community every single day and then bring those experiences back into this training environment. And we have a chance to talk about how to translate ideas of respect and inclusion and communication into practice in a way that people understand on a daily basis. So it really is an exciting time to be doing this kind of work in a police department. And I want to tell you, our officers have embraced it. It's not something that they're resistant to. We have strong leadership down in the department making this happen. So it's fun stuff.
Chuck, can you say anything about how our level of training compares to other police departments around the state or nationally? I mean, is it common for police departments to have that sort of range of diversity, equity, and inclusion training?
About just short of 70%, maybe 2/3 of police departments are now doing of large police departments are doing some sort of implicit bias training. Certainly everybody's doing some diversity and inclusion training. College town departments tend to do more. Okay. There are some West Coast departments that do as much or more. There's some folks who have 40, 50, 60-hour training blocks built into their officers' careers. We don't have that kind of time built into our capability, but I'd say we're better than average, but certainly not the best by any stretch. There are some strong leaders in some West Coast departments that really are working at this too. And we're learning our lessons from them and learning our lessons from their trainers.
How about in Iowa?
West Coast.
Yeah, I think the bigger departments are doing this kind of training. We partnered when we sent our first instructor off for the implicit bias training, that was a partnership with Davenport and Cedar Rapids, and they were gracious enough to include us and get us in on that. So, if you look at the 10 biggest cities, we're all, I think, working pretty hard to strengthen relationship with our communities, serve our communities, understand who they are, make connections with people who haven't felt trusting or connected to law enforcement in the past.
Do you think it's making a difference?
Oh yeah. But it's not a one and done. It's not a 1 year or 6 months kind of thing. This is something police departments will continue to have to do. And even while we're doing them, our communities are evolving and changing. And so we're always chasing after it. And so that's our job. And the exciting thing for me is the energy that our officers bring to that. We have a new cohort of officers that we hire, and this is also their world, and they're excited about doing this job well and about serving this community well. So the energy's there to make that happen. And I think that's the reason for optimism in all of this. They just,
Great.
this is what they do.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, you see it on campus. It's fun. It is. It's why we we want to live and work in this community. Okay. Oh, this is fun too. Ford Utilities have become our standard vehicle just because they're reliable. We can keep them on the street. They perform well for the officers. There's room in there. They're relatively safe for the officers. So they've been really good vehicles for us. And you may recall over the years, we've tried some idle management technology and solar assist technology. And we've done a number of things to try to see if we could improve the way that we use our fuel. And a lot of stuff didn't function effectively under police vehicle conditions. We are really excited that Ford's bringing out police patrol hybrid. We have a picture of the first one here. I was really hoping I was going to be able to tell you it hit the street this afternoon. It didn't. But any day now, that vehicle should be on the street. And in addition to this first one, we have 4 more that we've purchased coming online with a projected fuel savings of $5,000 per unit. A reduction in carbon footprint by 44,000 pounds per vehicle per year. This will have a really significant impact. Our vehicles idle a lot, whether it's on traffic stops or traffic enforcement or during calls, and the ability to manage that idling with hybrid technology is really it's what we've all been hoping for a long time. So really exciting development. Anxious for you to see these on the street. Within 2 years, our entire fleet will turn over, and we will expect these to perform well. And I expect our entire patrol fleet will be hybrids. And as our other units turn over, those that aren't already hybrids, we're certainly going to see if there's a reliable hybrid unit to put in that role. They really, with today's technology, they're great units. So good news.
Can we book ride-alongs in that?
Yeah, we'll put you on the list. We're just anxious to get it, right? And get it out there. So, yeah. And some of you have seen the whole Ford hybrids and seen the way they function. You really, operationally, you can't tell the difference.
Right.
So, good news. Challenging area. Let me give you an update on mental health referrals. I've talked to you over the years about this. Our call volume has stayed pretty high. We're still, 1,700 mental health calls a year. What's different for us this year is we are really increasing our utilization of mobile crisis response team. I mentioned this to you last time, that they'd come online. We were impressed with the work they were doing. We now have a track record with them. We have a working relationship with them. They have some stability and experienced staff. There are calls coming to us that we no longer go to. We send those calls directly to mobile crisis response. There are people who used to call us who no longer call us because they call direct to mobile crisis response. This is an absolutely fabulous innovation. It's what we need. Okay? It's good for the community. It's supported by the region. It's progress. And the only downside to this is some of those people who call us and are used to us coming, if we don't come and we refer them to mobile crisis, they sometimes don't like that. I mean, sometimes people call and ask, can you send Officer X out to see me again? Probably not. Okay. We have some calls that are not appropriate to send police on. Joe didn't show up for work. Is there any other risk? Is there anything else going on? Is there a problem with Joe? No, he just didn't show up for work. We're really not going to take that call, and we're going to push that back unless there are reasons where we think Joe is a risk to himself or others. So it's good to have the substitute. It's a better practice. And increasingly, we're seeing some case law question the outcome of some law enforcement contacts where there's not a reason, not a law enforcement reason to have us present. So we've got to stay attentive to this, follow the direction the courts are giving us. The good news is we're not leaving people without care. We're actually providing them with a really solid bridge to supportive services. But it's a change. And so it's a change that some people don't always adjust to quickly. You may hear about it. Just want you to know our experience with it is very positive, and we're seeing it helping people. And if there's a crisis or somebody's at risk, of course, we're still going. 1,700 times a year, we're still going. So,
Is Julie Saxton still 3/4 time? Is that right? Or
yes.
is there, I'm not suggesting you need to increase that, but is there a need for additional man hours in the mental health? Because you're showing 17-18, we had 1,600, and you're projecting 1,800. Next year, you're seeing an increase even with the mobile crisis response team. I'm just curious in terms of what your assessment is of the workload and what her or what the needs are departmentally.
There's a great deal of need, and there's no question if we put Julie on full-time, we would use her time efficiently assisting people. And there may be a point where we come back to you and ask to do that. We've really tried hard to make sure that we don't take over the counseling function, that we don't take over services that others are providing, that we don't step into the arena that really is the purview of other entities. And so we are working hard to try to make sure that Arlie Baum, Mobile Crisis, the hospital are all at the table doing their share of this. And at this point, while we could use Julie's time, we don't necessarily want that time to displace some of these other services. So that's one of the things we're being really careful about with this. But we assess that each year as we go through our budget process and our strategic planning internally and try to determine what's appropriate there. So you're accustomed now to seeing some of these slides, and most of the time the good news gives you some trend lines on crimes that are reported to us. So the red line is sex assaults. The message there, I think, is we still need to continue to work to make sexual assault reporting accessible, available, safe. It's still an underreported crime. So whatever number we have, there are more sex assaults out there that people aren't bringing forward. The Sexual Assault Response Team, our outreach efforts, Start by Believing campaign, all of those are initiatives that try to support sex assault survivors coming forward and at least exploring what options exist within the criminal justice system. But it's an important line, an important number, an important initiative, and it seems like I need to highlight it for you, even though it's not a top line for us. Domestic violence arrests, fairly flat, an area of great concern for us, though. That's arrests. The call number in that category is much higher. It's an area where these are complicated cases. We have repeated calls typically before we make an arrest, and there's a great deal of risk for the parties involved and sometimes even for police officers. So we don't necessarily fix it. We respond to a problem, but as a community, I think we need to try to support relationships, support problem solving in this arena, and the work that you do through Asset with those organizations, supporting families, supporting those environments is critically important to keep this line low. And then the top line is assaults. And it's going up.
Chief, I apologize, I should remember this. Are these just Ames PD? Do these include?
These are just Ames
They
PD
fold in
numbers.
Iowa State.
Just Ames PD numbers.
So it would be helpful. So even though we don't give oversight to what's going on campus, because those things happen within our community, it might be helpful for the next presentation to fold those in, just so that we can have a broad 10,000-foot perspective of the kinds of activities that are happening in our community.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Would we see similar trend lines? Are you aware
Uh,
of their numbers?
I have not laid their numbers down next to ours.
Okay.
Remember, most of these students live off campus. So, this is not a student, assault is not necessarily a student-driven incident. What's driving those numbers up as we look at them, more than half that change is due to more frequent calls to adolescent youth treatment facilities in the community. We have several, and there was a time where it was unusual for us to visit. We are going to some of these locations frequently. We have locations with 100 calls. Okay. So the complexity and intensity of some of the problems that our youth treatment agencies are dealing with is leading them to call the police to assist them more often than in the past. And we work with them on skill development. We work with them on interventions where we can support something short of a police call. But frankly, they struggle from the recruitment problems, retention of employees, turnover, and an intensity of their treatment population that's causing them some real challenges. So, and then the last comment I need to make about assaults is that this last year's increase from 18 to 19 includes a jump for us in aggravated assaults, those most serious incidents. That's generally run in the 40 to 50 range over the last several years. And that too has taken a jump. That's in the 60s this year. That may be a one-time, one-year phenomena. There's some normal variability in these kinds of things. But if that continues, that reflects some challenges to us, because those are more serious crimes than aggravated assault when we charge that. So a category of incidents we'll watch closely. We know the support of our partners who are working with adolescents is a necessary part of our work, and it's part of what's driving this demand. I don't know that we can drive that piece of it down, but it's one we'll watch closely.
Do you have any demographic data on that in terms of the age groups, where you've seen that increase, or has it more or less been in the youth
We
treatment?
can do that.
I was just curious if you knew off the top of your head.
Yeah.
If you don't know this, I was just curious if it was just spread across the board, or if it was more a particular age group in particular that was really starting to see that spike occurring.
I'm going to say, just from what we looked at, I'm going to say that 12 to 18 age group is particularly challenging for the treatment folks, and it's and there may be some creep on the lower end of that. We've had a few younger folks who have been real challenging that we've spent some time on, but most of them are in that adolescent teen bracket. Neighborhood quality of life issues. So the bottom line is nuisance parties. We aren't really slacking up at all. It's just that people are doing a better job of managing their environments. The property managers, the new properties being built are structured such that large disruptive parties are more difficult to develop. It's really a good sign for the neighborhoods that we're not seeing a lot of nuisance party citations. That trespass line, those are no trespass notices that we may issue after a shoplifting incident, after a confrontation with a store owner, or after somebody's invaded somebody's property and they don't want them back. We'll put them on notice. That's gone up. We have a lot of folks using that. We're trying to get some of our merchants to start issuing them themselves. We don't necessarily need to be doing those. They can issue those and not involve the police department. The next couple of years, we'll try to make that transition and wean them of their reliance on us. We'll still work with individual property owners and others to do it, but we think that some of our commercial entities are fully capable of doing this themselves, and we kind of have to handle a little bit of that back to them. But it gives you a snapshot of the kind of conflict that's happening every day in the community. There's something happening in a store or home where people are saying, I don't want this person back, and if they come back, I'm willing to go to court on a trespass charge. And then I think still really good news, that top line, noise complaints coming down. I need to say a couple things about noise. One is fireworks. So 189 times people were pretty angry and called us about fireworks. Most people put up with it and don't call the police department, but some folks just reach the end of their rope and give us a call. And so 145 in 2018, 189 in 19. So it's still out there. It tends to be concentrated in the summer, that 4th of July bracket for us. Frustrating for us, hard to write tickets, do what we can. Trying to brainstorm with other police chiefs across the state how we handle that. Are there some innovative enforcement ideas that come out of police and fire? The other thing I want to say about noise complaints is coming from the evaluation of our supervisors who have the experience of 2009 and 2010 where noise complaints came from parties of 100 and 200 people. And we'd show up and it was a noise violation. Okay. Those have diminished, and increasingly we're getting called to incidents where 8 people on a balcony are being loud, or my neighbor's stereo is a little bit loud. And we are trying to redirect some of those calls back to a property manager, back to the homeowner. And in some cases, we are just having to say there's no municipal code violation here. We're not going to go knock on your neighbor's door if there's no violation. And so it's hard to say no to people, but we're having to say more of that. And you may hear about it. So, but it's the right thing to do. We don't want to become a tool to harass the neighbors, right? And so we're trying to respectfully step back from some of that. If we're not going, the supervisor evaluates that decision and communicates to the caller what's happening and why. So we're really trying to educate people about it. But try to assist them also in helping them solve their own problems without getting the police all mixed up in it. So,
Chuck, how many of these fireworks calls actually turn into something? It seems like sort of an ephemeral offense that if you aren't there, you can't really catch them at it. So
we write, if we're really good, a couple of fireworks citations a year. We might. We're talking across the state, are there ways to ramp that up? Can you put a dedicated team out with an observer and document some of this stuff in some ways and start to bring some risk of enforcement to the decision-making process about that. So we're working on it. I don't have a good plan yet, but it's not just a names problem, it's a statewide problem under the ordinance we have. So, and I'm sympathetic. Property crimes, Theft's going down. A lot of that shoplifting. It is down. That's good. We'll take it. Burglary's trending down. That's really good news. None of us like our garage or our home being broken into. It's not just the material goods we lose. It's the sense of safety and security in the community we live in that gets challenged or even fractured when that happens. So the opportunity to drive that number down, that comes from being lucky, okay? But it comes from neighbors being willing to call, neighbors watching the neighborhood. It comes from, in some cases, good police work. Our night shift has really figured out how to respond to these calls. So you call us and say, hey, there's something going on, or somebody I don't recognize at the neighbor's house. We have a plan for how we respond to that, and we're catching people. And so need to encourage people to continue to call on those, help us drive that number down, and keep us safe in our homes and garages.
Do you think that as more and more people get cameras and doorbell technology and those sorts of things too, it sort of scares people a little bit into knowing that there may be cameras everywhere now, and that is a bit of a deterrent?
Yeah, I think so. There are two parts to that. There are cameras everywhere,
Yeah.
and so this is going to be your avocation. You need to take into account you might get caught, and then we are catching people more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have the opportunity to hit a whole neighborhood or hit 3 or 4 communities. We're sweeping them up before they have all these other victims. So I think that's all good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all good. And as the cohort of people engaged in that enterprise gets smaller, we can give them more attention. So I like where that line is going. I hope you do too. And then there's that little green line there that's not going the direction that we want. And this is, if you give up your burglary career, this is what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We are just seeing scams and frauds as the lucrative new frontier.
Mm.
And just to put this in context, I'm gonna highlight a couple of things that we've encountered, just so you know the scale of what our citizens are losing in these scams. In September, scammers spoofed a real phone number of the U.S. Marshal's Office in a warrant scam case. That person lost $18,350. Oh, gosh. In May, we had a Facebook scammer claim they needed money to get out of a European country for medical treatment. That person lost $60,000 in assisting that entity. Here's a good one. A local business provided a website and a credit card portal for a youth sports camp. Good enterprise, good-hearted folks doing what best they can. $40,000 in registration payments came in and were processed, and the proceeds minus the processing fee were forwarded to the camp sponsor, right? Our local business then discovered that those $48,000 in payments were made by stolen credit cards and were invalid payments. In April, a scammer claiming to be a Microsoft support individual accidentally deposited $30,000 into the victim's checking account. At least that was the story. Right? Being a good-hearted person, the victim reimbursed Microsoft to correct that loss. In the end, that person was out $25,000. And so these are cash losses that our citizens are experiencing.
Wow.
They're, I kind of water them down here and I read them and want to say it wouldn't happen to me, but these are very sophisticated scams. And when you're in the midst of it, when you're confronted by it, when you're taken in, it can happen. And so it's one of the challenges we have in law enforcement is to figure out how to try to interrupt this kind of fraudulent activity that crosses borders, that crosses boundaries, that crosses treaties, and moves large amounts of money out of the country very quickly. We're very concerned about it. Our international students are vulnerable. Our international visitors are vulnerable to this. They're sometimes not as quick to be suspicious or not as familiar with what seems normal. So it's a tough area, and there's a lot going on here. I want to put this slide in front of you. I have the last couple of years. The message here is that every dollar you spend on traffic management, roadway improvements is really important to the citizens. And I just need to make that clear to you. Our estimate of the losses last year in motor vehicle crashes is $6 million. And we are really bad at estimating losses. Okay. So you can probably double that or more. There's a lot of money being spent by our citizens on automobile crashes. We rank 9th in the state in the rate of accidents, and that seems okay until you think about our SIRIDE ridership and think about the portion of this community that doesn't drive every day. We're probably sort of punching above our weight, to steal a campaign phrase here. And so paying attention to our traffic management, paying attention to our roadways, doing some traffic enforcement on our part to get people to slow down, pay attention to the roadway, it is all part of the mix. And it's an important enough area. I want to put a slide in front of you and make sure you knew our work's not done in this area. Emergency medical dispatch. I mean, you all have endorsed this. You know, we do it.
Before we change channels on this,
Yeah.
Chief, you talked in your comments about the role of the decline in opioids, which we're very happy to see that comment. But you also comment about the role of methamphetamines and how that's driving a lot of these other offenses. Could you speak just a little bit to that, to those trend lines?
Sure. As I've told you in the past, drugs weave through much of our work and much of our interaction. We have seen a decline in our drug task force seizures of opioids. Even though they are working opioid cases, the frequency with which they're encountering that is down in comparison to 2 years ago. The frequency with which we're deploying Narcan has declined a bit. We still have an occasional save, but it's not coming every 45 days like it used to. The purity of the heroin we encounter fluctuates a lot, but it's not a high purity heroin, and that's one of the ways that we judge the importation of the drug. I want to give a lot of credit to the opioid task force in this community. I think they did a lot to develop public awareness. I think our physicians have stepped up and really responded in educating families and monitoring families and limiting prescriptions. There's a lot of good work being done that's led to the decline in the opioid crisis in this community. It's not gone away. People are still dealing with it, and we still see it. Families still struggle with it. Treatment access is still important. We have 2 grant programs underway to address this. One, a training grant looking at a sequential intercept model, trying to get people into treatment wherever they are and repeatedly directing them into treatment. And another community-wide demonstration grant that we partnered with other law enforcement agencies and the county attorney to try to develop a diversion grant and divert some of our drug-addicted contacts into treatment. So both of those are in the developmental stages, and will hopefully be resources to try to further address that. Now, having said all that, we are very close to a major distribution point of methamphetamine in this state. We're seeing methamphetamine prices drop. We're seeing methamphetamine availability go up. We're seeing methamphetamine purity like we have not seen in a long time in this town. We're seeing large amounts of methamphetamine coming into Iowa generally, and also into central Iowa. So the opioids have the headlines and have the news and have captured our attention. What's really affecting the everyday lives of our families in this community is methamphetamine. The easy access drug of choice for people in a mental health crisis or dual diagnosis situation is very often methamphetamine. The addiction we're trying to break in that cycle is very often methamphetamine. It's not getting the media attention, but it's a part of our lives and our work every day, and that is true of much of central Iowa.
That's very helpful. So as you think about best practices, if there are things that we could be doing, funding, campaign efforts, outreach efforts, I don't know what to do with this. So it's very serious, but unless you give us recommendations, I don't know what we would do.
Yeah. The most optimistic thing I can offer you on that front is the potential for a medication-assisted treatment of methamphetamine. There is a clinical trial underway that's testing that concept, and that's been a very important adjunct in the opioid treatment program. So if that were to come to life and really be viable for people, the treatment successes, the nature of the treatment experience could get much better, and we might really be able to funnel people into a treatment program with an expectation of success. If that comes to fruition at the same time that we have a diversion program and a sequential intercept concept developing in this community, we'll be doing some powerful things to try to help those families. So help us as we work through this diversion program, keep the load out of the criminal justice system, get people into treatment, make sure they have access. And if we find a model that works, we've got to really then try to make sure it stays functional in this community.
Thank you.
EMD. This is one of those things that we do, behind a closed door downstairs. You never hear about it. 4,000 times a year, we're giving medical instructions to somebody who's called in with a medical emergency. We had a dispatcher who was kind of emotional the other day, and she had absolutely every right to be. She had given CPR instructions to a person over the phone. The person had done CPR based on the telephone instructions, and the person regained a heartbeat based and really had a pretty successful recovery based on that CPR over the phone. Wow. Pretty cool. So 4,000 times a year, they're doing this. They're providing en route instructions to the fire department and EMS as they respond. We have to maintain a high quality of service, high quality of professionalism in this practice. It's an exciting thing. I was tempted to play a couple of those calls for you, but to really give you that flavor, they run a little long, and maybe another time. But I did put up, just to give you a sense of what this looks like. Our system is computerized, right? But this is the card that we might fall back to if the computer fails and we've got to work off the cards. And so if you look at the blue panel up there and it says 1, 2, 3 across the top, this is kind of the sequence that the dispatcher goes through in working with that caller. This is an airway arrest or a choking situation with an unconscious victim. And you can see that it leads the dispatcher and the caller through questions about the circumstance and resources available, how to position the patient, how to check the breathing, and then diverting into other potential problems that may have contributed to it. Instructs them in how to start mouth to mouth, how to do CPR, and how to manage that process until the first responders arrive. this is one of the most exciting parts of the work that we do. We had a recent AED application. We don't bring those into the council anymore because they become pretty routine. But we had a person go down on a job site. We were there in between 2 and 2.5 minutes. We had that AED applied. We shocked that person. We got them into immediate cardiac care with a Mary Greeley ambulance. Got them in the hospital, and a day or two later, we got this really happy hospital picture from the family sent to the officer who applied the AED. There is nothing better than that. And so it's our dispatchers, it's our police officers, it's our firefighters, it's our emergency medical responders, and it's that emergency room cardiac care immediate service. It's that chain of survival that's so critical. And I'm just proud to be in a community where it works and where we can actually point to people, some you probably know, who are here today because that chain of survival works. It's cool stuff. Happens behind a little door down in the police hallway there. And so, as you can imagine, our dispatchers take it very seriously, and they're proud of it too. All right, parking. Couple exciting things about parking. You had asked us to try to stay the course in the South Campus neighborhood with enforcing parking in that area. We have maintained our patrol in that area. We cut down a little bit on our initial staffing of it, but I think we've maintained pretty good control of parking problems in that South Campus neighborhood. We have to ramp up a little bit spring and fall when we get turnover, but we're spending time there doing education, not necessarily writing tickets that generate revenue, right? And you knew that when we brought it to you, but it's working. The other area where we did a lot of education this year was around the game day penalties. And our first couple, we had good partnership with ISU. We did media, we did print, electronic media. We did a pretty big push. We had signs going into the neighborhoods. We had ambassadors on the street in the neighborhoods educating people. And so, again, I'm proud of the work the staff did to make sure that if you were coming into that area to park, you knew fines were increased. It was hard to get there without getting that message. And we had very few people who came to us with a legitimate kind of I didn't know sort of complaint. So good educational effort. I've written a memo that I think you'll get shortly about what that looked like this fall, what the numbers look like in terms of citations. I will just preview this, telling you that at the very last game, we had a remarkable level of compliance with the parking regulations. It was actually kind of surprising. I was coming into it sort of pessimistic, and then we drove the neighborhoods at that last game, and we wrote fewer tickets than I think we've ever written at a game. And so might have been the weather, might have been the time of the season, might have been a cumulative effect of the education, but at least for one game, we made a difference and got things looking pretty good. So we'll bring you some information. You can evaluate whether we stay with that level of penalty for another year. Do we have to bump it up? I don't have a good answer for you, but I'll give you some perspective on that at a future date. Slipping over to animal control. You asked Keith a question, and I think he explained to you that we've moved some of the money out of Parks and Rec over to animal control to try to maintain services out at the dog park. Our folks just have a little more credibility and ability to do the enforcement out there. And in many cases, their person was having to call us anyway. And so this is a good partnership. They've been great to work with on this, and we'll try this one. It gives us some flexibility with that animal control position to move it up to 3/4 time. We're concerned about trying to retain talented staff. We lose a lot of staff in that area to other departments and other services. So the chance to go to 3/4 time may help us keep somebody a little longer too. So good move all around. And I think we'll do better out at the at the dog park because of it. One of the major initiatives that Ron has committed the shelter staff and all the rest of us to is this transparency of what happens at the shelter. Good, bad, or indifferent, you can look it up on our website, and you can tell what happens to the animals that come in, who they are, what happens to them. If we have to euthanize an animal, we acknowledge that, and we're prepared to explain why. The community has shown their respect for that transparency with donations and fundraisers, and literally truckloads of donated goods. So I think it's what the community expects of us, and I really want to applaud Ron for the work he's done in making that happen. It doesn't come without a lot of work on the part of their staff and staff commitment to it. So, and if you look at the numbers, they are good numbers as well. So that was the good news. A little bit more challenging news here in terms of the facility. Our role has changed a little bit. It used to be dogs and cats, and now it's fewer dogs. It's a lot of cats, and now it's rabbits and chickens and gerbils and snakes and oh my God,
That's a chinchilla.
the diversity of animal types that we're having to rehome, that we're having to reclaim, that we're having to provide veterinary care for has really changed. And so the facility is not designed for that. The facility is not designed for the volume of animals that we're having to manage. And so you have funded us to start the process of looking at how we can better either make this facility fit or design a new one. We have an architect who's working on that. It's given us some preliminary ideas, and we're in sort of the push-pull on that. And at some point, we'll bring you an explanation of that. And the other thing that, frankly, we have to do is go out and study how other shelters get their new facilities built. So we've got to go to other communities and say, how are you doing this? Where does your money come from? We understand that we probably have to raise some money to get that job done. So expect that at some point in the future, you'll hear more about the facility. There are also some new state standards that we will have to meet. They make sense to us. We know we should do them, but they aren't necessarily things we're fully prepared to meet in this facility. So we're having to scramble a little bit to address those too. But we are addressing them. So, and again, appreciate the commitment of the staff out there to make this happen and take care of us, take care of the animals. So with that, do you have additional questions for me or things you'd like me to clarify?
I'd like you to know that my students have noticed not only the animal shelters statistics that have been coming out, but also the game day parking ordinance. So whatever you're doing to get the word out is making it to campus, at least in a small sampling of business communication students.
Well, that's good.
I was pleasantly surprised how many of them seem to be aware of City of Ames initiatives to get the word out about what we're doing.
Well, our student government partners have really been helpful in addressing parking issues for several years now. The people who have sat in that seat and now in the seat too, they've really helped us communicate to students. They've opened some pathways, they've made some connections, and in some cases helped us staff events that communicate to students. So some of that student to student, and we appreciate that very much. That, of course, is the best.
That's great. Devin, send that back to your partners on campus and let them know that at least I appreciate, and I assume everyone else on council does too.
You know, we have to give credit to athletics too. They have been fully supportive of this, included information in their materials. They're trying to divert people into legal and appropriate places to park. They want to have good relationships with the neighborhoods, and they don't want to see this either. I need to be clear, they've been very good to work with on this.
We also heard from the Chief Higgins about the neighborhood blitz, and thank you for participating in that. It sounded like that was a roaring success, but what a great way to interact with the new students or the new renters or whatever, or the neighborhood, and the more we can do to bridge that gap and make them feel welcome and try and keep those lines continuing to trend down is really very exciting. So thanks for doing that. So I always enjoy sitting here and listening to what presentations. I just marvel at what our staff does, and thanks to your officers and the dispatchers and stuff too. It's just we just take it for granted, essentially. We really do. So thank you very much for what you guys do and your leadership. Any further questions for Chief or staff? And
Good job.
Ron, I think you should handle another 1,000 animals a year. I think. Don't you think you can handle that in that facility? Or
No problem.
Rachel and I went out there when she was just to do the orientation, and oh my goodness, I'm not sure you put any other animal out there right now. It's amazing. You got animals in corridors and thanks you. I mean, I just appreciate your no kill. You really try and achieve that, and boy, it's because of you and your passion. Thank you for doing that, and I think that you have a compassionate heart and keep on doing it. So thank you. All right, very good. Thank you very much. All right, move on to there are no disposition of communications to council that I know of for this evening. So we'll start with council comments. And how about you, Amber? Anything tonight?
Nothing.
David? No. Mama?
Nothing for me.
I have one thing. So the joint meeting, I've been looking at days that would work, and originally thought, oh, April will work. No, that the new student senate gets put in around the beginning of April. And so they're all orientation meetings the rest of the year from there. I thought, okay, March 24th, that's their last meeting. It's going to be super long. And I was like, okay, March 11th. Nope, that's the budget talks. And so March 4th, which is really close and a lot sooner notice than I had wanted, is the only day. So I need to ask you all if there's like any immediate conflict issues, or if there's anything that if that is like something that jumps out as not being okay. Otherwise, there won't be an availability for a joint city council meeting this semester.
What time is it usually? Can you?
They're typically, so the meetings for StuGov are at 7. And so we can set that time between like 5:30 or 6, depending on if we want an hour meeting or an hour and a half.
That's fine.
Works for me.
Cool.
Let's lock it in then. March
Sweet.
4th then.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you so much.
I might be away, but there are enough people who can come.
Anything else, David?
Nope, that's it. Thank you so much.
Gloria, anything?
Well, I did note last night that we could be celebrating the wastewater treatment facility for its record. And now I see we have a trend at electric services as well, with the 1,039 days without a lost time accident.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps we're in a trend for celebrating utilities here in Ames to create fun.
Fun.
That's my
Utilities.
comment.
That's what I think of when I think of fun.
You will think Ames and utilities and fun if we do this.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
Okay. Tim?
A quick comment. I had a chance to visit with a city council member from an Eastern Iowa River city this summer, and we were comparing notes about cities. And I asked her what her number one issue was that kept her up late at night, and she said crime, without pausing. And we take for granted, I believe, the quality of life we have here. So really appreciate the presentation of law enforcement tonight. That's not our first thing we think about is our problems. And so we appreciate very much the people who take care of us. So that's all I had tonight.
Nothing.
All right. Very good. I had nothing either, so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourn.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.